I'm going to call this meeting to order, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? None. Do we have a mover of the minutes, please?
The minutes?
Any questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you.
I'll move the closed session minutes.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Tracy Vaughan Merritt has a couple of introductions to do. Director of Recreation.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't even hope to aspire to that. It's absolutely my pleasure to introduce two new staff in our Recreation, Culture, and Community Development Department. So first, I'm going to introduce Jason Shildroff. So Jason, you can stand for a second. So Jason joins us from Caledon and brings really strong skill set in grant writing, community development, sustainable partnership development, partnership collaboration. He was also the lead for Caledon's first Youth Summit and Caledon's Adult 55 Plus strategic plan. So definitely skill sets that we welcome to the town of Ajax. He also led a number of events as well, so certainly fitting in really well with the community development team, and we're really fortunate to have him. He also worked with the City of St. Catharines, where he supervised 4 centers for older adults. So he is working, as I mentioned, in the community development portfolio and has the responsibilities of St. Francis and cultural programming, as well as seniors initiatives. So please join me in welcoming Jason.
Welcome, Jason. Good to have you
And
aboard.
then certainly pleased as well to have the opportunity to introduce Poonam Sindwani. So Poonam is replacing Stacey Chong as our festivals and events coordinator. And Poonam as well, we're really lucky to have such talented people being attracted to the town of Ajax. So Poonam has more than a decade in event planning and coordination, delivery, sponsorship, and has worked with the town of Richmond Hill, as well as in the charitable sector as well. So for the Canadian Breast Foundation, Run for the Cure, as well as Sunnybrook Foundation, Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada, and the Canadian Paralympic Committee. So you can imagine brings a lot of skills to the table for us. So her experience speaks to small events, large events, community development style events, and we're certainly fortunate to have both of them joining our team. And Robert's very happy to be back to full complement, and we expect amazing things. No pressure.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. I have a number of pulled items on the consent agenda. 4.4, 4.7, 4.10, 4.14, 4.18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 6.3 is going to go previous just after this, and 4.7 is going to be in combination with 6.3. Okay, is that confused you up?
No, you got it.
Okay.
And 6.1.
And 6.1, but we're going to 6.1.
I'll move the balance.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. You did not say 4.6. You did when I spoke to you before, but you didn't.
Well, okay, 4.6 is on my list to be pulled. Thank you. All in favor of the rest? Okay, thank you. We're going to have 6.1 first. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Lauren.
I'm pleased to introduce, I have here with me today Graham Herbert and David House. They're both from Western Management Consultant. They are the individuals that were awarded the RFP for the executive search for Sabre. So they're here today to introduce themselves and explain a little bit about the company and just a bit about the timelines and what we're going to go through with the search.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much for the opportunity of working with you on the search. We had to make sure you get the right result and the right fit, and we'll tell you a little bit about our approach in that regard, because we use a different approach than many of the search companies out in the marketplace. So I have a short presentation. I'll flip through it. Councillor Brown, you're okay with that?
Yes, that's good.
So Western has been around for 42 years. We've got 4 offices in across the country, 70 consultants, and we have 14 in Toronto. We're a partnership, and we have really interesting slide. Have 3 different practices, and why this is important, we have executive search as a cornerstone practice, but we actually do a lot of work in the municipal sector on organization design, process reviews, efficiency reviews. So what we bring is a lot of in-depth understanding of working with municipalities at all different levels. And we also work on leadership development and assessment. We bring all that kind of knowledge to our search that we do in municipal practice. So again, what we do is, and most people know that we often hire for skill, but fire for attitude. And so a lot of what we do is focus on hiring for fit in terms of the role and the culture. And really it's all about helping you find the right person that will help move the town forward in the way that you wish it to be moved forward. So one of the things that we also bring is the fact that we recognize the uniqueness of every organization. And as you may be aware, we will be meeting with all of council and all of the department heads to get an understanding of the town. That's very important for understanding the kind of individual that you need to take on the CAA role. There's no one size fits all. It is a match that will work best for you. So just to take this a little bit further is that in terms of our search, we focus on fit as well as the knowledge and experience, but we also have some patented methods and assessment processes which are simple and easy to use that really allows us to measure whether people fit or they don't fit. And again, we have extensive depth in this particular field of search in the municipal sector. Here are some sample clients. We won't list them all or talk to them all. And these are some of the searches that we've done more recently. We were asked to just give an outline of our approach, and I think that I don't need to go through each of those steps. It's in our proposal, but certainly steps 1 and steps 6 and 7 are pretty critical, because at the end of the day, we will establish up front exactly what you're looking for, and then we'll target our sourcing to make sure that we bring the best candidates forward to fit your requirements. We also do some things that we screen people before they are brought forward to interview or long list and to interview. So not only do we source, but we screen against your requirements, and you'll find out more about it once we have the discussions with you. So we pre-screen, bring a long list to you, and then bring your qualified candidates to you, and those will also be backed up by objective assessments. And we'll be able to compare and contrast candidates against each other. Let's say you're in the place of having 2 very qualified candidates, and it's hard to differentiate. We will be able to help you with that with our assessment tools and materials. So it's all about matching people to the role and the organization here in the town. And these are some of the things that we do assess people on, besides the knowledge, experience, and technical expertise that you require. How they behave, what drives them, the skills that they bring, the acumen, how do they read the environment, how do they work with people around them, and the ability to deal with difficult situations, including stressful ones. Are they able to continue to work effectively even if it's a difficult situation? So these are some of the reports that will come up to the panel on, which will help you make some decisions on the best candidates. The timeline is, against that project plan, is to finish it in April. Probably May would be the latest, but we'll work with the town to make sure that the timetable works with everybody. And we'll flesh it out later on. But at the end of the day, it will be done at the end of April. The only concern that we would have normally at this kind of timeline, given elections coming up, that some candidates may be worried about that. On the other hand, it all depends on what they're moving forward to. If they like the role, they like the environment that you have here, they'll still come despite the fact there's election. We've dealt with that situation before. So this is the team. David and I will co-leading this. We always have two people working on the project at any one time in case we get ill, things happen, there's some conflicts of timing. We're always on it together. We joined at the hip. And we have a lot of background in search, but also in consulting with the municipal sector. So we're having conversations about you and your, I'm going to use the word business needs, and we will understand what you're talking about. We're not just finding bodies that look like they fit your requirements. So we can challenge candidates as to whether they really had the experience that you're looking for. We do have people behind us also working to support us. We have research consultant Clinton, who's been doing fantastic work and doing some of the original sourcing, and also a very senior person who was a deputy minister at one point, who is also works with us on searches and in organizational consulting. So that's a brief overview, and I guess what we can do is leave it open to questions.
Thank you. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. During your presentation, you mentioned that you have dealt with difficult situations and timing. You're obviously fully aware that next year there is a municipal election, and recruiting during that period could present some issues. But you're confident in going forward with this timing, knowing that possibly there might be some changes on council, and this new executive is walking into a situation where there might be some unknowns. You're comfortable going forward with this timing?
Well, we know that in the last couple of years we've, there's a series when the last round came through, we dealt with 3 or 4 of commissioner and CAO searches. It's all about people coming towards the role and the environment. Sometimes it gets into the contract that protects them for a period if there is change. That's the only difficulty that came up in one situation, and the council decided that was no problem. In other words, there was protection for a period of time if the council changed completely and the mayor changed. But we don't know enough about your situation right now, but we will deal with it. We have dealt with it before. We're dealing with it on some other searches right now. And the reality is people will come to the right opportunity. They will.
Regional Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I guess through you to Lorna. Just on time frame, maybe I don't recall this correctly, but I thought we felt it important that council, like the new council, I'm trying to think of what the timeline was originally, because this says it's going to be done in April. I thought we were expected to be done around October, November.
No, the recruitment, when we talked about that, should be done around June, the end of May, so that we don't get into a lame duck situation with council. If council gets into a lame duck situation, you can't hire or fire during that period.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be leaving it open if you were in a lame duck until the end of, until you're inaugurated. You wouldn't be able to make any decisions on hiring a new CEO at that point.
So what is the actual hire date projected?
The actual start date of a new CEO would be September 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Regional Councillor Jordan.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. You spoke about the requirements for the position and the fit with the culture. How do you go about determining that?
We do it, first of all, by interviewing council and interviewing the department heads. And we get a sense of the culture and the requirements for fit. But the other thing that we want to do is find out specifically what outcomes the new CAO needs to deliver for council and obviously deliver through administration. So the outcomes become, objectives, put another way, are so critical to attracting an individual. If you have a big change program, that's a certain kind of individual. If it's steady as it goes, it's a different kind of individual. The attributes that they bring are different. Because somebody who wants to do a lot of change quickly and you have a steady state environment, it's not going to be a happy circumstance because they'll want to be changing things up all the time. And a steady state person, to simplify it, will not move fast enough for you if you do have that change. So we want to understand the outcomes you want to achieve, the timelines that you want them to achieve, and then we actually use a technique where we'll ask the selection panel to actually go online and actually create a hierarchy of the attributes that are important for success in the role. And we use a process with the selection panel to align the panel around requirements for success here in town. So it's a two-step through interviews, an online assessment, and then a discussion and an agreement by the selection panel on requirements. It's something that we do very differently to most of our competition in the search practice. Alignment around requirements by a panel is critical, so you're all looking for the same kind of person and outcomes. And that's also very critical for the prospect. You were saying, are they aligned around where we're going and how things are and the culture, because they will want fit as well. And that's why it works. If you give us a great description and outline, we'll be able to target people who will fit that outline. So hopefully that answers the question, but it is basically a 2+ step to get alignment around requirements. And as we showed you on one of the slides, even though it's hard to read, on the right-hand side, we actually have, based on your requirements, a comparison of 5 candidates against a job requirement. So we'll bring a lot of objective data, not just interview data, to say whether these people fit or don't fit. So we go to great pains up front to identify fit as well as knowledge and requirements, but at the back end, when it gets to assessment and the discussions we have in the panel, on candidates, we bring a lot of additional data where we compare and provide a lot of data on the individuals besides interview data.
And would that involve psychological
Yes,
testing?
it does. But it's kind of a lot more straightforward. It's not done by a psychiatrist or psychologist through his interpretation or her interpretation of what a person is like. It's a much more practical today, and it's very, very comprehensive. So you get a lot of just good, plain, real data that you can say, yeah, this is the person I'm getting, and this is how they will fit.
Thank you. Any further questions? Getting done?
So what we'll do next is we will set up all the meetings with the department heads and the council. So we'll go through patients to get dates that you're available, match them up with David and Ram, and we'll let you know in advance when this will be happening.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
joining us. Wish you every success. It's important to us, right?
Thank you.
Before we go on, I have neglected to declare my conflict of interest on the closed agenda 7.2, as I own a property in that area. Well, potential, I don't know. Okay, so we're going to move 6.3 up because the staff people that may be required are here presently. And in combination with 6.3, we're going to, after 6.3, we'll want 4.7 West Pole and
4.14.
4.14.
Check what the book.
I think, yeah, that's all I need. That 4.14 stands for. Okay.
Operating budget forecast?
Remind these guys.
I know.
Good afternoon. Wasn't quite ready. Okay, the general levy forecast is before us this afternoon for council's consideration. And what we do in the general levy forecast is every September we comply preliminary look at what the budget's going to be and what our gaps might be when we do all our calculations. So we have an estimated impact right now of 2.6% on the base tax rate, and this includes new staff as well as reserve allocations. There are a number of impacts that are significant to the budget each year, and one of the first ones is that after a number of years of having large increases in hydro costs well above inflation, we're actually going to be experiencing savings for the 2018 budget. That's twofold. It's partly due to the elimination of the provincial portion of the HST, as well as our continued investment in the LED streetlight conversion. As well, we have some new facilities that we will be opening and functioning in 2018. We have the investment in the civic space, the opening of the downtown urban space at Billy Square, and the completion of the renovations for the Quaker Meeting House. We also have each year new infrastructure and cost to maintain existing public infrastructure that places pressure on our budget. Similar to last year, assessment growth is just over 1% at this time. We will be finalizing the assessment growth over the next few weeks. We can expect as we move through future years that our assessment growth will be 1% or less. That's kind of a natural progression as the town builds up. The council list formalizes projects or services that are not currently contemplated in the budget. Preliminary operating and capital budgets already include some of the items that were identified by councils. These include walkway lighting, accessibility of the trail network at road intersections, and counting devices measuring usage of trails. There are two council initiatives that will be presented for council separately from this report. Later in the meeting, there'll be a presentation on the waste management and outdoor public spaces. And right now, the region-wide road rationalization is currently being updated based on consultations between the local municipalities in the region. Upon completion of that, staff will be able to report on the widening and transfer of Roslyn Road from the region, or to the region, I should say, the region of Durham. Based on council's direction, staff are working towards a base budget tax rate increase of 1.75% for the 2018 operating budget. This increase will provide the funding for existing programs and services, as well as managing our increased demands due to growth. There are a limited number of exceptions that will need to be funded beyond the base budget increase, and these are things such as new facilities, new services, and major legislative changes. This is a snapshot of the four-year council term, and illustrates the planned and strategic reduction of the annual tax rate increase. The town continues to be a leader in lower base budget annual tax rate increases throughout the Durham region. For 2018, there is a legislative exception that will require an additional 1% tax rate increase in 2018. Let's talk a little about that. This is a significant impact on the budget, Bill 148, Fair Workplaces and Better Jobs Act. It hasn't been passed yet, but we are expecting it to be passed shortly, later this year. As such, the final recommendations are pending, and what we've done with the 2018 operating budget is try to limit as much as possible to the known and quantifiable items that we know are coming with this bill. The part-time minimum hourly wage increase from $11.40 to $14 will come into effect on January 1st, 2018. This will impact all part-time wages to ensure the wage differentials between part-time job bands and scales are maintained. Also significant will be the increase to the hourly part-time rates where a part-time position fulfills the same job requirements, qualifications, and skills as the full-time position. Since we first reported on Bill 148 impacts in September, further review and evaluation has been conducted as new information and expected criteria continue to emerge. This included delaying the 2018 fee bylaws as a tool to mitigate the budget impact. The costs are currently sitting at $685,800, which is a 1.14% increase on the tax rate. We are proposing to fund this legislation through a 1% tax rate increase, which is about $600,000. And the balance of the $85,800 will be offset through revenue and staff vacancies. Of course, as we move through and there's further changes, if there's any possibility to continue to mitigate the impact of Bill 148, we will certainly implement that for presentation at with the 2018 operating budget. The next steps that staff will be undertaking will be to eliminate the gap that exists right now of $510,000 to reach the 1.75% tax-based budget tax rate increase. We're going to implement the Bill 148 requirements with the passage of the legislation. We'll continue to identify post-forecast items that will impact our final budget submission, and we will consider inclusion of any new or expanded programs or initiatives. The 2018 operating budget will be presented at the public meeting of February 12, 2018. Questions?
I'm sorry. Thank you. Councillor Colley, you pulled this item.
Just to be clear, Chair, so we're dealing with 4.7, are we or are we not dealing with 4.14?
We're not dealing with 4.14.
Okay. But that one is operating budget forecast.
Yeah.
It kind of ties in a little bit, so
Well.
I'll ask for your 2-minute string. Let's see where it goes.
Would that be, what do you?
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
Yep. we
So
can move on.
4.14, 4.7, and 4.
Well, the reason why I wanted to tie 4.14 into this, Chair, is because it deals with the surplus of about $1.2 million this year. And several of us have been here for a lot longer than me, but I've been here for 14 years now, and I don't remember a year where we haven't had $1 million plus surplus, or very close to it. And I bring this up each year because on report 4.14, it says that that surplus is at the direction of the Director of Finance, sorry, which is yourself. So in 4.14, you talk about taking 800 or so thousand of that $1.2 million surplus and putting it to the Quaker House. And then you spoke to the $77,900 of debt carrying charge in this report. So there's my tie-in.
That's right.
They go together. Is that the 77,000, assuming this 800,000 goes from the surplus?
That
Or-
77,000 will be gone. So
Will
we
be
will.
gone.
So this is one of these times. So for operating budget surplus, you can't use it in an annual basis to fund your next budget.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
So, and just for clarification, one of those big reasons is because surplus does vary.
It's not guaranteed,
Since
right?
2013, it's gone from about $250,000 to $1.5 million. So it's not a stable funding source. But we can make some decisions that will help us in our next operating budget using that money appropriately. So in the case where we have debt to be issued on the Quaker Meeting House, we can use that surplus to fund that capital project to avoid that. So that will mitigate about $80,000 of operating budget impact.
I get that, but that's not where I'm going with this at all. Where
Oh,
I'm going
gosh.
is the general levy top-ups to the capital project reserve each year.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know, it's not in any of the reports, how much is the projected for operating, well, I guess it's part of operating and capital budget. How much are we taking from general levy in 2018 into the capital projects reserve?
So the increase, I don't have the exact overall number, but the increase is projected to be $89,000.
Which brings it to a total of?
I don't have the exact number. It's just over $5 million.
Okay. And this is where my point's going. If we have a $1.2 odd million surplus, at the discretion of yourself, well, at the direction of yourself and based on council, we can transfer that to the capital projects reserve instead of using it to not incur this Quaker House debt. Because quite honestly, this Quaker House is kind of a walk-on item. This is not something that was part of the long-range capital forecast. for the last couple of years. It's only going to save us about $77,000 or $78,000 a year in carrying costs, versus if we took part of this surplus and did not have to do the top-up from the general levy, we could avoid this 1% tax increase.
Yes and no.
Yes.
So, well, the problem you have is you're doing the same thing, whether you're using it to fund your reserves, that's the same thing as using it to fund your operating budget. Because as soon as you don't have the surplus that you need there, you can't fund your reserves anymore, and you have an increase on your tax base.
Well, I'm not talking about doing it every year.
But if you do it 1 year, then that's what's going to happen, because all we're doing is increasing the reserves by $89,000. And let's bear in mind, it's important that the general levy support our reserves. The funding that supports reserves is general levy, slots, and meridian. It's
Right.
important that the general levy maintains that support of our reserves.
Okay. I follow that.
Okay?
Capital projects is where pretty much everything comes from.
Well, we restructured
Including
the
public art and everything
Yeah,
else.
no, we restructured the reserves.
Okay.
So we have a building maintenance reserve,
Right.
development reserve, road maintenance reserve, vehicle equipment, strategic initiatives.
But every year, we
Mhm.
put about $5 million, you said, from
Yeah.
the general levy into the capital projects reserve.
Right, and that's already budgeted for.
Okay. And then we have our surplus, which is completely separate.
Yeah.
And then we have our tax rate stabilization, which I think is pretty close to the maximum.
It's
you know.
it's at the target level right now at
Okay.
4.6 million.
So it's at the target, so we don't need to take, because that's where this surplus goes first.
Yes, if we had to
Okay.
top it up. Yeah, we do not plan to use it for that.
Fair enough. And I don't know, maybe I'm not explaining it right, but
Okay.
instead of transferring 5 million from operating, okay, which is right on the tax base, that's part of our tax increase. If that was reduced by, say, 800,000, or whatever the Quaker House is, that's about 1.2%, okay? If we didn't have to make that general levy top-up because we used the surplus on a one-time basis, that would remove 1.2% of the tax increase.
Okay, so as soon
And
as
it doesn't affect anything going forward.
It does, because you've taken a $5 million transfer that's already in.
Right.
Before the 1.75, before
Right.
the 1% for Bill 48, you're taking that and reducing it. So you're reducing your budget by 1.2%.
So you're saying next year we'd have to make
So
that
then
up?
I'd have to make it up. So the reason that I'm recommending that we use it for the Quaker Meeting House, it's a one-time transfer. I don't have to make up that $800,000 again in the 2019. So I'm kind of succeeding at what you want me to do, but I'm doing it through the Quaker House and reducing the taxes that way.
Well, I can't say I won't support. I just don't fundamentally support saying we have a 1 3/4% tax increase, but it's not really 1 3/4% tax increase because we got this 1%. I think we need to make it abundantly clear, and I hope Keith is writing like crazy back there, that Bill 148 has severe and measurable impacts on our budgets.
Yes.
It's not just the food industry, it's not just hospitality industry, it's across the board, and that represents a 1% tax increase on every property taxpayer in HX, and that's just HX.
And similar in other municipalities
Right,
as well.
I'm saying, this is just us,
Yeah.
costs us, and the original projection was 1.2 odd million dollars.
Mhm.
Now we're able to get it down to about 685, which is good.
Yep.
I'm still not really understanding the whole accordion effect as you explained and the need to bump everybody up. I kind of do, but I don't know if there's anything legislatively that says we have to do that. Lorna, maybe?
Yeah, there could be equity implications tied to it if you're not, so we have to look at where people are and that. Also, where the way a wage schedule is, as you may know, is all the jobs are rated, so they're within a specific pay band, and they're rated based on the qualification, skills, education, experience, what that job is doing, right? So if you've got a large group of employees that were being paid below $14 an hour that are now bumping out, it is going to affect it. We would have people that could get promoted into a higher position that actually now are starting at less than maybe what they were making before, if we're not adjusting the pay scales. as
Do
they
we
go
have
as well.
full-time people that make less than $14 an hour?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
just to be clear, Bill
Are they
148 is
unionized
all
full-time people?
part-time. It's all part-time.
Okay.
Yes, it's only part-time wages. It has
So
no impact.
we have full-time people making less than 14 now?
This is only part-time
Only part-time people, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, we need to get the word out there on this because, I mean, I can answer to the 1.75. I can explain that our costs go up just like everybody else's costs go up. And we need to, you know, we run a pretty lean, tight ship and we need to, I can justify that. But when the province makes a decision that isn't particularly well thought out, and that has effects on every taxpayer in HX, I mean, we need to make sure that word gets out. Are we doing anything to spread this word?
Well, the associations for the municipalities are doing presentations right now to the legislation. So right now, the legislation's finished second reading, has gone back to the standing committee. And I was actually just looking at it the other day, and there have to have been like 50 to 75 more presentations so far to them from various organizations, including AMO has been also speaking on behalf of municipalities. And it's not finished yet. There is a possibility there'll be shifts and changes to how they implement this. And of course, we'll reduce the budget impact wherever we can, depending on those shifts and changes.
Okay. And just notice, I'll probably be asking a lot of these general levy capital project questions again when we do the budget at the next GGC.
And I'll be delighted to answer them.
Thank you.
Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point that, you know, Council's direction was to continue to bring the tax increases down through the term of Council. And what's frustrating is that, boom, we get this landing on us now at the lowest increase that we were planning to do, which now puts us back to where we were 4 years ago in the increase. And, you know, good employers will do the adjustments to their employees correctly. However, there's not all employers are good employers, and not all will adjust the band the way they see fit. The only way for us to raise money to do this is to go back into the pockets of our residents again, who may or may not have good employers and may or may not have their wages adjusted accordingly. And that's frustrating for me because other companies that are having to do these adjustments will raise the cost of their product. So the cost of cottage cheese goes up, or butter, or milk, or whatever, again, eventually affecting residents indirectly. But we don't have the luxury of doing that, and I feel that the province has really put the municipalities at a big disadvantage because it's not right. It's not right for the taxpayers to have to pay an additional 1% because of something that the province has mandated. And, you know, this is a provincial election year, and I really hope that something is being said to our candidates out there because they need to look at this. It's big, it's huge money for municipalities. The school boards, I don't believe are as affected as much as their bottom tier, I believe, are the cafeteria workers. Everything else is unionized. They're not even affected as much as we are at this point when they did some investigation. And I'm so ticked off. I'm so annoyed at the fact that I know how this will play out, and it's wrong on every level. It's wrong that we have to go back into their pockets, and it's wrong that some of our residents will not be fairly treated in their own employment areas, and it makes me very angry. So no question, it was a statement of anger. That's it.
Can I give you,
and that's just it.
To that statement, a couple of things. There was a resolution that council did pass on that began with the town of Whitby about dealing with municipalities as an exception to Bill 148. So that was first came to, I think it was AMO was or AMTO was at in June, and we did our council has done a supporting resolution as well. So that's one of the things that's also in front of the legislation as well, to try to get municipalities seen as an exception, because we're not a precarious employer.
I just want to say that I'm not against minimum wage increase, not at all. That's not at all what I'm saying here. I just know, I know personally that employers do not adjust scale-wise. They don't. They just don't because they can't afford to, right? Whether it's right or wrong, whatever, it doesn't happen. So I'm not against the increase in the minimum wage, but again, municipalities need to be treated differently because of the way we have to fund things. So it's just wrong.
Thank you. Mayor Parrish.
Conscription if necessary, but not necessarily conscription. Just a couple of things, Mr. Drain. Bill 148 takes the minimum wage from $1.40 to $14 on January 1st.
Correct.
In its present form. But that's only stage one of several steps.
Yep, so for January 1st, 2019, it will go to $15.
Right.
And then in October of 2019, it will be back on track with the inflationary increase.
Okay, so what we have in a little more than a year is an increase from $11.40 to $15.
Yes.
Then I take it that the budgetary impact of that next jump won't be nearly as dramatic as this jump.
No, correct.
So we're taking a big hit, but we're taking most of it if the bill remains in its present form this January.
Agreed for the things we know. So,
I'm getting to
Yep.
two things.
okay.
Tax rate stabilization fund. Your report eliminates that as being usable because this is not a one-time blah, 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 blah. And I understand the point you made, but to a certain extent it is a one-time in that the jump, it's like going up 3 stairs from your main floor to your bedroom level. And the first stair has a rise of 20 inches, and then the next 2 have a rise of 7 inches. If you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So on that basis, is there any qualification for this partially long-term and not eligible for rate stabilization fund, but partially, in my view, qualifies for rate stabilization fund? Is there any argument that can be made there?
The only argument can be made is if your 20-inch stair, move to a 7-inch later. The 20 is still there when you get to your next 7-inch. So it doesn't disappear. It becomes part of the base, and then we're adding on to the base again. But it's not going to disappear. So the only way, if you use tax stabilization, you have no method to recover that. It would be recovered on the backs of other services.
Right. Secondly, I've heard a lot of pushback against this legislation. And a lot of the pushback, like nobody wants to spend more money, right? Like nobody wants higher taxes, nobody wants higher overhead in their business, etc. But a lot of the pushback has been, yeah, our minimum wage is too low, but God, you're catching up way too fast. There's no transition. You know, if we're going to $15 an hour from $11.40, can we please do this over another year or 2 or more longer so that it's kind of a slope like this and not a slope like that? And I wouldn't be surprised if between now and when it emerges, which might be before February 12, 2018, that these types of political compromises may well happen. You're telling us, you're giving us your word as an honorable person today, that penny for penny, penny for penny, that will take this rate down.
Yes.
Okay, you all heard that.
All right.
Somebody get in right.
But if you give people
No,
short
no, you know the
No, you're not qualified.
But yes, we will absolutely do that. If we have the opportunity to reduce the impact, we will reduce it. We're not going to bring you 1% if they are going to phase this
Yeah,
in.
so I just
And I'm
want,
hopeful as well.
I just want to clarify on quantum. Last year, our budgetary driven tax rate increase was 2.25%, correct?
2.25, yes.
2.25.
Yep.
So, and if I read your report correctly, in order to match what our increase was last year and not have the spike going back the other way, notwithstanding Bill 148, and I understand that, we'd have to find $300,000.
I think right now I have to find 510,000 to bring us to 1.75.
I thought 600,000 was 1%.
Yeah. So right now, sorry, I'm not sure.
I said to go from 2.75
Mhm.
to 2.25,
Yep.
0.5%,
Mhm.
you'd have to find $300,000.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
So that to me doesn't sound like it would take too much of a favorable change in that legislation. So for example, what I'm saying is, if for example, and I'll just give you an example, they changed it. They said, no, we're going to 13 bucks an hour on January 18, we're going to 14 on January 19, and we're going to 15 on January 1st, 20. I don't know, because I'm not the math whiz you are, but I think you pretty well have a $300,000 right there.
You won't, because there's other legislation involved, the equal pay for equal work.
Right.
So about the minimum wage versus equal pay to equal work is about equal on their impact.
Okay,
So you might get 100,
So the
maybe a
equal
little
pay
less
for
than that.
equal work impact, in your view, and in your association's view, and NAMO's view, is roughly the same as,
It is for Ajax.
okay. For Ajax, that impact is basically the same as minimum wage.
Right. So you wouldn't have that big savings, but you would have still substantial savings if they started phasing it.
Just one comment, just a political comment, because Councillor Crawford gets to rant, I get to.
You get to rant more.
But I think this is simple politics. I mean, in 2015, everybody watched the Liberals outflank the NDP to the left, and they won big time. Well, guess who learned that lesson? The Liberals are trying to outflank the NDP and steal their vote by being the main champion of minimum wage. That's what's happening, and they're taking an educated gamble that by stealing votes from the NDP, that's their last desperate way to stay in government, because they're not stealing any votes from the Conservatives. That's why this has been done this way. It's pure politics. It's not love of the working person or the lower classes or any of that crap. Did I say crap? It's none of that. It's just politics. Here's my rant.
Thank you for your rant. Regional Councillor Jordan.
Yes,
I wanted to ask, you've got that we have about 400 to 600 part-time staff. Are they all minimum wage, or
No.
do we have a full analysis now of how many positions this affects? My other question is the ripple effect. How high up does that go? Because I think that people have a real issue there.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers of how many people within each band it affects, but the ripple effect goes right to the top level of your wage increase. Because when we do wage schedules, we have a certain percentage between each band. So when people get to their job step, if they are being promoted or wherever higher, there's a differential at the next band that they get. So this did affect every band that we have. So we tried to keep it at a minimum, the effect. So we spent a lot of hours looking at it and saying, how can we, maybe even compress the differentials between the bands if we can somewhat, but still make it that it's fair as we're going across. So we've done as much work that way as we can, but it does affect right up to the top band.
In the part-time?
Yes.
Just the part-time?
Strictly only part-time.
Yes.
This has absolutely no effect, the wages
You're not
have
getting a
absolutely
raise,
no
in
effect
other
on
words.
full-time.
You're not getting a raise in other words.
I think that needs
Yeah.
to be made clear, because I think some people thought it was going right up to the top and can't comprehend that. So I think we need to make that message clear. When you talk about equal pay for equal work, how many positions does that affect?
Yeah, I'd say
About
4 or
5,
5.
yeah, 4 or 5
Yes.
positions.
And is it a significant difference?
Some of them are, yes.
Meaning how much?
Well, overall, the total cost of it is about half of the 685,000.
On how many positions?
Well, the positions themselves, there's about 4 or 5 positions, but there's a number of people within those positions. I'm sorry, I don't have
Okay.
those, the numbers of the people involved in them. We do most of it by hours.
And all that information would be available to look at that analysis? I just felt in this report we didn't get enough of that kind of background analysis of how you dealt with this. And I think that's important, because I think people are having a hard time understanding all those kind of subtleties, I guess, with the comparisons.
We can look at expanding that in the budget report, yes.
I would appreciate that.
Certainly.
The other thing I think is, I wanted to ask, when you looked at AMO and what was being asked, what were those delegations to the committee asking for a phase-in, or were they asking just not to do it altogether? What was kind of the main messages that they were getting?
The AMO, they reported on a few things. I'm trying to remember. I did watch the clip on it. They were reporting on the equal pay for equal work, and how that will affect particularly some municipalities with volunteer firefighters, but throughout. They were also, I can't recall if they remarked on the phasing, but I believe they probably did, and also remarking on the municipalities as sorry?
And on call.
Oh, and on-call as well, and remarking on municipalities and their environment on how to fund these.
I mean, I agree with raising the minimum wage, I agree with equal pay for equal work, I think that's only fair, and I mean, a number of people are working at part-time jobs, or, balancing a couple of part-time jobs, and they're still not making a living wage, they're under the poverty line. So I think we can't forget that. However, if it was phased, I think it would help us to a great extent. It seems a big jump in 1 year, and hopefully the government will look at that and make that impact. I mean, I heard them say at AMO, Kathleen Wynne, that she wanted to look at this so that it didn't have an impact on municipalities. I don't think they understood that, but whether they come through with that or not is a different story. But I think the phase-in would help significantly, and I hope they listen, and because they're just hitting our local taxpayers very hard.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I forgot we were discussing 4.7 as well.
Oh, I don't think you should be allowed. Don't let him back.
Well, two things. One, I'm glad you clarified that this is only part-time again. Are you able to, just from memory, say what our lowest hourly rate of a full-time person is in the organization?
$12.59.
$12.59. But they wouldn't be affected, so they'd still be making 12.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, did you say full-time?
Full-time.
Full-time, I'm guessing, but it would be around 23.
Okay.
22,
So there's no
$23.
way that Bill 148 is going to affect any full-time.
Not the wages.
Okay.
Could affect equal pay for equal
Well,
No, not equal pay. It could be on-call, but on-call has been pushed out to 2019, and that could be one that probably drops off.
okay. No, that was good clarification, but unfortunately, our part-time makes up more than 50% of our staff, so.
Yes, yeah.
That's where
Full-time's
we
not
have to-
affected that way at all, not with the wages.
To the, I think it's 4.7, council remuneration.
Yes.
And I'm glad we're just sticking to our average, although in other years, we haven't had to kind of go with cost of living because the other municipalities had put their numbers out. Why, are they late this year? Why don't we have the actual numbers for other municipalities this year?
A lot of them tie it to their bargaining with their QP groups, so they haven't completed or started bargaining with their QP groups. So they're only anticipating what they may or may not give.
Would we
to
have
them.
those numbers by December?
By December, they haven't started negotiating with them
Okay,
yet.
so there's no point putting this off.
Right.
It's, okay. But to the 1/3 tax-free, I understand there was talk of making that, removing that through the, whatever it's called, C
It's
something.
been legislated now.
Yeah.
Federal budget is
So-
legislated.
So how is that going to affect? Because we're approving something, but we're basically taking a tax, or a pay cut with the removal of it.
That doesn't take effect until.
2019.
Yeah,
2019,
2019.
okay.
So we'll bring back something next year.
So next year,
Mhm.
you'll look at how to, and I'm not asking for any more, but I'm also not asking for any less.
No.
But how to mediate that, that tax change that's coming.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Through the chair, just on that, I think it's also time to revisit the use of the average as well, too. I think it has, I think it's served us well, but it's a little bit flawed in terms of not having the information, and there's at least one other municipality. It looks like average, if everybody went to average, nobody would move. So I think as part of that discussion on how the 1/3 is treated, there will be some recommendations on the go-forward strategy as well, too. The average, as I said, has been in place, I think, since, for many eons, and I think it's kind of worn out its effectiveness, so that will be part and parcel of that 1/3 discussion as well.
Just further to that, also, we've grown substantially. Ajax now 125,000 population versus Pickering 92, Clarington, I don't know what Clarington is, but they're
The same.
considerably lower than us. And Whitby and Osh are only marginally higher. So, I would agree, given the amount of citizens we represent.
And through the chair, if I can as well, too, it's more than just your travel allowance and your salary, it's, level of council support or other allowances. So I would suggest, and that's traditionally done by the new council coming in, so I think the look would be fairly comprehensive beyond just, these two items, but, also looking at the level of, budgets that you have, all those types of things, that's usually job one or two for the new council, so that'll all be part and parcel of it as well.
Thank you.
Also, we're reduction in one ward. It's a huge part.
I'll move
Sorry,
this.
I was just going
Oh,
to
okay,
say that,
yeah,
I
okay.
had my hand up to say.
So
the workload.
6.3, any more questions on that? Somebody move it?
I
Move
did.
it.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. 4.7,
I'll move it.
any questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. And 6.14?
No, 414?
No, 6.14.
There's no 614.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, 4.14.
414, Madam Chair, I pulled this, but Councillor Collier asked questions
Yeah.
I
I pulled
needed
it
on this,
also.
so I'll move it.
Okay. Both of you called it.
Okay.
Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. 414. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So,
Back to
where are
consent.
we're on the discussion, right?
No, we're at 418.
418? Oh, right.
Hold on a sec. Are we going back to consent then?
Yeah.
Yes, we go back to
Come on, go back.
Well, we haven't spoken of 4.4, 4.6, 4.10.
You approved those.
No, we pulled those. They were separated.
Yeah, 4.6 hasn't been dealt with. And 4.4.
They were separated.
We're going to go back to 4.4.
Oh, Pat, you're the chair.
I am the chair, you guys, no more of this.
We separated them. We voted on the balance.
Yeah, we did.
4.4 then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly. This is to do with a new fee. Wait 1 second. Find my notes. Okay, this is to do with the non-residential fees and through you to Mr. Meredith. and the use of our, I guess specifically we're talking about sportsplex for the most part, right? And probably our turf fields.
It's artificial turf fields and the ball diamonds up at Sportsplex,
Yeah.
in terms of tournament use.
It's just, it's, like I look at this as tourism. And tourism is good. It brings money in for a lot of other things, not just this. I guess I just hate to see this new fee. It's a substantial fee. I don't remember what it is, but I wouldn't want to see this be a deterrent. What is it, $750 per diamond or something like that? I don't remember. It's substantial. And I wouldn't want to see this become a deterrent, because I honestly, I think that we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we lost one tournament, even based solely on this fee. Can you speak to that?
When we look at the tournaments, and obviously there's been an increasing demand for tournaments at Sportsplex, which does relate to the resources that we're committing from a staffing perspective to provide that support. But when we look at a lot of the tournament usage, a lot of it is through the colleges and universities that are booking their tournaments sort of on-town facilities. In addition, there's private commercial users that are charging $10,000 to $15,000 per player to participate on these travel teams that are booking these facilities for a lot of these tournaments as well. We've had discussions and are in the process of having discussions with respect to these fees, but the costs are not going to be impacted on the local sports groups. These are, for the most part, private, for-profit organizations.
Well, just one side. It does say there's a resident of $750 per field per day, and a non-resident of $1,000 per field per day recommended user
For tournaments, correct.
for tournaments. So local teams are paying,
So what we've done is,
or would be paying.
what we've looked at is what the hourly rate would have been, where they would have booked for 10 to 12 hours, those hourly rates on a Saturday. And said now for a tournament, it's a flat fee. These are the supports that are being provided from resources as far as equipment goes as well, in terms of providing the service that we currently provide. There's not an added, if you look at sort of the hourly rate per diamond, and there are generally multiple diamonds that they are booking anywhere from 4 to 6. But there's now just a flat fee that we've had the dialogue with the local user groups
Okay.
that they're finding.
So this isn't in addition
It's
to.
not in addition to, it's in place of an hourly fee.
That wasn't clear to me from this, so, okay. All right, I guess just I made my statement. I'd hate to see this, lose us any kind of tournaments going forward. I guess we'll know next year. But if you're saying you don't think it will, then that's fine. And to the only other I had was bench dedication. And I recall not too long ago, it was, I think, $500 for a bench dedication. When was that?
About 3 years ago.
And now we're $2,000, so 400% increase in 3 years.
So we've moved to a cost recovery. So this is our cost to deliver the service. The benches are about $1,200 a piece. We've changed the standard on our benches. They are the all-metal benches now, which do have a longer life expectancy, whereas in the past they're the wood or plastic plank. So the design of the bench has changed, which has increased the cost.
So this would be on new installations.
This is on new installations.
Are all of our current installations dedicated?
Not all are dedicated, no.
But if there was a bench over here that's not dedicated and somebody wanted to, would it still be 500 or would it be 2,000, given it's not a new bench?
The program is the 2,000. That's the cost of the bench that we changed to.
So you would change the bench to a new bench? Is that what you're saying? That's what I mean. We've got, say, 1,000 just for a number of benches in Ajax, and say 950 of them are already dedicated. And then I choose one of these 50 that's not, and say I want to dedicate that. What would my fee be?
So the dedication program is for a new bench, new location.
Okay.
We're generally not replacing existing benches at existing locations. So we have defined locations, whether it's along the waterfront, whether it's along the trail system, whether it's in new parks or new playgrounds, so that each year as we add new infrastructure, we provide new opportunities for new benches. So if someone approaches the town and requests a new bench dedication, it would be $2,000 for a new pad and a new bench at a new location.
not my question.
Okay.
My question is, if there's an existing bench right there, and it doesn't have a plaque on it, it's not dedicated yet, and I want to dedicate, buy the dedication on that bench, what would be my cost?
You wouldn't have a cost because that's not the program. The program is.
You don't get an old
Bingo.
bench.
Am I not?
You don't
Can't
get
do
an
it.
old bench.
Okay, so
Yes,
any
Minister.
existing benches that are not dedicated right now will never be dedicated.
It's not the way that it's been in the past, and that's not the way we foresee it. It's new locations, new benches.
I kind of understand.
No old bench for you.
No old bench for me.
No bench for you.
Those are all my questions on that, thank you.
Moving it?
I'll move it.
All in favor? Carried. So 4.6 now, you pulled that as well.
Oh, probably.
No problem.
Just again on this is recreation and culture on the let's make my place. Some of the budget impacts and I'll be honest, I didn't go through the 50 pages of
You didn't?
spreadsheets that came after the report. So I'm hoping you can save some time. On page 4 of the report, it lists, and it says, as of April 1st, the budget and the increase, and I just wonder, what's that break down to on a per use basis? I mean, it looks like you've just used an annualized amount versus the others on a per use amount. Like, if you look at increased fees, page
Yep.
4, which
Yep.
is page 65 of the agenda, where it says, for instance, hall rentals, April 1st, 318,300, estimated budget increase,
Right.
budget impact. This is, let me find my place. Is this to do with Bill 148 again?
So, through the chair and Council Collier, what you will see, obviously, in each area, we have proposed different fee increases. In some areas, we have recommended what our normal fee rate would be, fee increase, plus a 1% for Bill 148. As you are probably aware, a lot of the part-time staff who are significantly affected by Bill 148 are contained in recreation. So we are doing our best with our fee recovery tool to be able to offset some of that. So you will see in certain areas we've added a 1% on what would be our typical increase looking at our other municipalities. So we've still kept
This
pace.
double dipping, if we're adding 1% to our budget and you're adding 1% to our hall rental, that's a little bit of double dipping. If we're doing cost recovery to make up
Didn't
for
you guys
the
talk before you got in?
effects of Bill 148, yes, let's go on. What-
So through the chair, so in the GLF report, we identified where we have looked at fees to do a cost recovery.
Right?
And reduced the impact on the operating budget. So our impact on the operating budget is $685,000. And we're saying 85,000 of that we are going to offset through our revenues as well as our,
So we can no longer
Thanks.
say we've increased our budget or we've passed our budget without initiating any new user fees. Because we are passing on some of the expenses through these costs.
right.
Well, we've always said that in the past, that in any new user fees, but we're increasing existing user fees. Okay, thank you, Sheila, for clarifying that, because I'm thinking it's one or the other.
Yeah,
We
we-
Right.
can't be doing both. So, okay.
And we've looked at areas, as Ms. Vaughn said, that are highly impacted by the Bill 148 minimum wage increase.
Any other questions?
I think that's it.
Mover?
Move it.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. 4.10, Sean.
Oh, shoot. Hold on a second.
Gas and
Was this
diesel
on the
fuel.
budget builder?
No, it's gas and diesel.
Oh, okay, so we're signing a 3-year agreement with one company. Is that like completely, who's this to Dave? Is that completely independent of oil rates? I mean, how can we make a contract to purchase fuel 3 years in advance on a commodity? I'm not sure who that's
This is
for.
mine, yes.
Oh, okay. I never seen that deer in the headlights look.
Oh, it's Linda Morales. Linda
Ready
Morales.
for it.
Where the hell's Linda Morale when you?
Yeah. So through the chair, this is a co-op
Yeah.
contract that's done through the region. So what they do is they do it as a percentage based on their various costs, and then we follow that percentage. So and then there's estimated costs associated with that. Will it be to that exact amount? Not necessarily. It can fluctuate with the prices of crude and such. But I mean, this is the way that we've been able to do it and able to limit our exposure by keeping the percentages at a constant rate that they apply against the crude and other calculations that they do for costs.
So it's not a fixed contract, it's a bit of a variable contract.
It has both in it. It has fixed and variable.
And that's worked out well for us in the past?
It has worked out very well for us.
Okay. Thank you. I'll move it, Chair.
All in favor? All right. These are Steve, 418.
Yeah. Is this Jade's one?
Greenhouse.
Is she here?
Yes,
Oh, there
Jade's
she
here.
is. Very simple question. You've applied for, I think, 4 projects, and you've applied for all of them based on 50% funding. And my question is, and I think eligibility is up to 100% funding. Obviously, you get an advantage or points by leveraging, by putting in municipal funds. Are there any of these projects that you think we could apply for a larger percentage, 75 or whatever?
Through the chair. I had this conversation with the Director of Finance regarding the same matter, because she did ask this question to me as well. Due to the different attributes that these 4 projects provide to the scoring criteria of the grant funding, I do not believe that any of them, the additional 10% in points that we get for leveraging the 50%, would provide a big benefit in terms of a better scoring criteria for getting that money.
Okay, so my next question is, so we've leveraged it as well as we can. We've given ourselves the maximum chance of success, and we're getting 50 cents dollars. What if we get all 4? You know, like, I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's not a good thing. I mean, so, and I think I read in your report that if we did get all 4, it might shove other projects that are unsubsidized off the table. So can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a conversation that I've had with members of senior management as well. In the past, through these types of provincial grants, it is very unlikely that we would receive all 4. I don't know a record of the funding that is available. To put it into context, there's $100 million on the table for this grant application. 30% of this funding has been allocated strictly for northern communities, so anyone located north of Parry Sound. They also have less stringent criteria that allows them to be eligible for this funding.
Right.
However, they also, after releasing the fund to the municipalities, have actually lapsed up some of the other criteria for other municipalities. So the competition is quite high for applying for this funding. In addition, the 4 projects that we had put forward have already been identified in the long-range capital forecast. They were also identified in the corporate energy management plan, as well as the greenhouse gas emission reduction plans. So these are projects that have been specifically identified.
So they're all in the long range.
Yep.
So you're saying that even if, on the unlikely basis that we got, not all 4, but a few of these, the worst case scenario would be rearranging the deck chairs on the 5-year capital plan. One of these would be moved up and something else would be moved back. This isn't something that came out and put in and something totally thrown off. It would be rearranging timing.
That is correct. And in addition, the way that the grant has been set up is we would receive notification in February of next year as to whether we were successful on these projects. However, we have until March of the following year, March 2019, to actually begin implementation. So that does
Begin or completion?
Begin. There is actually no completion deadline.
So there's flexibility.
That provides us 2 budget years in order to determine where these projects lie.
Thank you.
Councillor Jordan?
Yes, just when reading this, I didn't understand how the boiler replacement fit into the criteria. The others I could see? It was evident.
That's a great question, and actually the boiler, through the calculations that we had to do in order to determine the greenhouse gas emission reductions, it actually has the highest potential for reducing emissions. Boilers are operated on natural gas. Natural gas has a high carbon emissions associated with it. It's actually, I think it worked out to be 0.01% of the community's overall greenhouse gas emissions. So that puts us in standing there because of the significance of the potential savings there. And in addition to the fact that the boilers provide heat as well as hot water to a community service, the VHS community center.
So what are you replacing them with?
It would be high efficiency condensing boilers.
So they're gas-fired boilers, but they're...
Yes, their life cycle is at their very end now. They're due replacement already, so this is a good opportunity for us to extend funding to support that.
Any further questions?
Move it.
All in favor? Thank you. Steve, 418, license agreement with Medallion?
Yeah, my question here is simple, and it really doesn't have to do with the licensing agreement. I understand the licensing agreement, I understand the necessity of it. I'm just trying to get, as I go by there and the project gets nearer to completion, I'm just trying to understand what the interface between the building and Bailey Street will look like. That they put the pavers underneath the covered area near where the residential entrance is, etc. We have that old asphalt surface that was used as a temporary pedestrian, and I think that it looks like in the not too distant future that will be built out in kind of its final form. And I'm just trying to understand what that will look like.
Yeah, so the overhang of the building to the property line, the interlock pavers are being installed now. It'll be continuation of that into the municipal boulevard or up to the property line, and then that's where it'll transition from the interlock pavers to the sidewalk, pedestrian element.
Sidewalk?
It looks, standard cement sidewalk, although it'll be larger in width, 2.5 meters as opposed to 1.8 meter.
8 feet wide.
Yep. And then it'll transition to that to the boulevard, which will then have the light standards and the existing hydro poles that are along that south side of Bailey Street. And that'll be also not concrete sidewalk, well, that'll be interlock pavers as well. So right from the edge of the sidewalk to the back of curb. And then I'll have any of the infrastructure in there, so the lighting, the hydro poles, etc. And then that takes us right to the edge of the travel portion of the roadway.
And when will be at that state of completion, you know?
So all the works along regional operations, Harwood, streets. So it looks like it'll all be done spring, summer of this year, of 2018.
So it won't be done till the spring?
Correct. Because they'll want to make sure they finish everything on the site first before they go and do anything in the boulevard, because that'll be the last stuff they do so they don't damage it.
Okay. Thank you.
When is the first occupancy permit going to be issued?
From what I understand from building, they're looking at doing the undergrounds and main levels starting at the end of this year, and then they're looking into the January, February, March of next year, and then they'll start going floor by floor.
So no apartment units will be occupied this year, is what you're saying?
There might be the
retail.
potential for some apartment units, depending on how it rolls out with the underground and the main level occupancies from the commercial and building occupancy timing.
Again, this is, they're telling the people that have rented them, some of them, that they're going to be moving in middle of December. That's not going to happen, is what you're telling me.
Actually, I think they're working very hard to
They are.
get some residential occupancies in this year, and we're working very hard with them to accomplish that. And they would be looking at phasing it floor by floor, and hopefully, as I say, we will be able to accomplish that before the end of this year.
Yeah, because the biggest part of the occupancy review is all the underground and these kind of main levels. Once they get to the residential occupancy, it's relatively quick because they're just going off the same checklist of items that they would for each floor after that, so.
Of course, my concern is the people that have rented the units. They've given their notice where they are, or they've sold their house, and they're not going to be able to move in. I think that, are we discussing with them? Have you advised your potential tenants?
We haven't done that, but I understand Medallion are actively working with their incoming tenants.
I've not heard that.
You haven't heard that?
No. I know.
Well, maybe we can have a conversation after
Yes,
the meeting
okay.
about that.
Thank you. Any questions further? Somebody? Yes, all in favor? Thank you. Steve, 420, greater growth plan for the greater Horsham?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Reading this report, it struck me that with the new requirements in terms of intensification, in terms of buffering, in terms of agricultural protection, a number of things, it struck me that, and I'm just thinking about the headwaters of Crothers here, it struck me that the bar is considerably higher to be able to say, from a growth plan perspective, that settlement area boundary expansion is necessary, and also that those particular lands with their constraints might not clear some of the criteria. So I know this is an overarching report that deals with the legislation as adopted and the rules that are being rolled out. But can you maybe speak to what, in your professional opinion, is the impact of this new legislative package on the comprehensive review for Durham Region? I take it Durham Region will have to do a comprehensive review in the next, I don't know, few years. And I take it that when that comprehensive review happens, the headwaters of Crothers are going to be a potential candidate for a settlement boundary expansion. And just using that as the background, how will your report and the legislation impact, and what will be the rules of the game when a group of councillors from Ajax and the region look at this matter then?
Thank you. Through the chair, there have been some significant policies added to the growth plan, especially in terms of criteria that need to be met for urban boundary expansions. And just to provide a bit of context, Durham Region has noted that they will start their comprehensive review of their official plan in 2018. 2018, so next year. I'm not quite sure whether it would be early or late 2018. I was unable to confirm that with staff before this meeting. And in terms of the Northwest Pickering and Northeast Whitby lands in Durham's regional official plan, they are identified currently not as an urban area boundary expansion. When they did their previous comprehensive review of their official plan, they had identified it, and the province at that time said no, that those lands were not needed for their growth at that time, and that area was deferred. And there are policies in the region's official plan that speak to looking at that area through the next comprehensive review, which will be happening next year. And two elements that would need to be looked at specifically for these lands for an expansion is the amount of development that will have occurred or is going to occur in Seton, and also the completion of a watershed plan update for the Carruthers Creek watershed plan to look at whether development or how development could be, whether development could and how it could be accommodated on those lands.
Can I stop you there, Ms. Ennis, for just a minute? Refresh my memory as to what the tipping point is, if I can use that phrase, as to the build-out of Seton that would allow these particular properties to to be considered? Is it like 75% build out, 50% build out?
I'm not sure what the tipping point would be.
But it's safe to say that today, the build-out point of Seton is very, very small compared to its ultimate capacity.
Yes. We also have to, though, consider that the province has allocated an additional 230,000 people to Durham Region. So the Durham Region's population projections to 2031 were 960,000, and to 2041, it's been increased to 1,190,000. So, and there are a lot of factors. So I'll shift to speaking about the growth plan policies. There are a lot of factors that would affect how that development can be accommodated. First of all, they have increased the intensification target in terms of from 40% to 60% of all development now needs to be accommodated through intensification, so that would affect the numbers, as well with greenfield development density targets. They have been increased from 50 people and jobs per hectare and to either 60 people and jobs per hectare for areas that are already designated or new areas that would be designated. For instance, if that area, the Carruthers Creek headwater, were designated as an urban area expansion, they would need to accommodate 80 people and jobs per hectare, or any other new areas that would be identified in Durham Region. So both those factors would affect whether or not the Carruthers Creek headwaters areas would be required to 2041 to accommodate population growth. In terms of criteria for urban expansion, there are two very significant policy amendments, specifically with regard to water, wastewater, and stormwater servicing and discharge. The policies now speak to them needing to consider their cumulative impact, which is new and fairly significant, and also the impact on receiving water bodies, so what that impact is going to be on Lake Ontario. Additionally, there's a new policy framework about water resource systems, of which surface water, such as Carruthers Creek, are captured in that system, and they say that watershed plans need to consider the assimilative capacity of the receiving water bodies, again, the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, and also very significant watershed plans need to take into consideration Great Lakes strategies and Great Lakes agreements. So, for instance, the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement and the annexes with regard to nutrient loading and ecosystem objectives would have to be considered when the, as the watershed plan update for the Carruthers Creek, which is currently being undertaken, those have to be considered as part of the watershed plan update.
The comprehensive review may start next year. Typically, how long would a regional comprehensive plan review take?
3 to 5 years, potentially.
Okay. So it would take place over the course of the entire next term of council in all likelihood?
Most likely, yes.
And refresh my memory as to when the timing is for significant benchmarks on the Carruthers watershed study. It's been circulated to Ajax and Pickering and the TRC, or Pickering, Ajax and Pickering and other stakeholders for comment now. When will that play out in its entirety?
So the watershed update plan is being conducted in 2 phases. Phase 1 has been, the TRC says it's been completed, but in reality it's been mostly completed. They generated background reports on the status of the watershed, the terrestrial and natural heritage systems, aquatic habitat. One fairly important report that they didn't do in phase 1, which is a hydrology modeling and monitoring report, which would understand groundwater flows into Carruthers Creek that would help model downstream impacts. That wasn't completed as part of Phase 1. It's going to be completed as part of Phase 2. Phase 2 is currently underway. And Phase 2's objective is to look at development potential for the headwaters and look at different land use scenarios. Town staff will be participating in a meeting with the TRCA, Durham Region, and Pickering staff on December 12th to talk about the status of the watershed plan and what will be happening in Phase 2 and consultation with regard to that as well.
And approximately be completed by?
The timeline for, we're not quite sure, we'll know more in December because the timeline for Phase 1 was 2015 to 2016 and they just completed Phase 1.
Right.
Even though they have started Phase 2, the timeline for Phase 2 is 2017 to 2018. So at this point, we are not certain whether or not they are still on track or whether
To pull it together then, the watershed study would not be completed until the comprehensive review process had been commenced at the region.
The watershed study will not be completed in advance of the commencement. Potentially in advance of the commencement, not knowing
In all
exactly when
probability.
the commencement. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Elaine's moving it. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. 421, Stephen.
Yeah, I don't really have a question on this. I just wanted to comment on it. I just wanted to thank Mr. Smith for the report, and also I think this report has captured the new niche for Ajax in the fitness realm. I mean, a lot of points were made in the report in terms of being a user-friendly place, good customer service, a feeling of belonging to it as opposed to the commercial properties, more friendly for seniors and certain other aspects of the population. I just wanted to say that I thought the direction and the focus of the report was right. I think in other words, some people will say there's no point in us being in the fitness business anymore because the private sector has just taken that up, and I totally understand that argument. But I think there's sectors that the private sector doesn't take place, and I think that the programs that we do offer are well received and popular, and I know we have an absolute riot if we stop providing them. And so I just wanted to, and I know it's just an information report, but I just wanted to say that I basically agree with the general direction. And I'll move it.
And Mayor Parish, all those in favor? Carried, thank you very much. You needed to come for that.
You mean to wait an hour and a half for that?
That wasn't the only thing we dealt
Tracy,
with.
I'm sorry.
Oh, we had to wait for an hour and a half for that, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, I got him an afternoon off. What the
Through the
hell?
chair to Mayor Parrish, I think we did a better job this time around of actually speaking to the value of municipal fitness facilities, where I don't think we've done that in the past. The other piece that I think we haven't done ourselves justice on is we still generate revenue. And I don't know that we necessarily said that as clearly as we should have to council.
Right.
So we do still continue to generate revenue. This is not at a cost to the town. It does, as you can see from the large number of multi-year patrons, does fill a specific need for a certain niche of people who aren't looking to join a Lifetime Fitness or a Good Life. It's a different environment and it's a different entry point, and that's where I think the value is. And to be able to still offer that and make revenue, I think is two strong points that we haven't always been able to communicate clearly to council. So our apologies for that. We'll continue to do a better job of that in future.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried, thank you. 422, Sean.
Oh, last one.
I'm always last.
Last but not least.
Never least.
Just to the relocation of the parade to Ajax. Financial implications. Staff proposed partnering with Pride Durham to support parade programming, i.e. buskers, permits, road closures, and marketing, flyer design, printing, at a cost of $5,000, which would be contained in the Recreation, Culture, and Community Development operating budget. Sounds a lot like a grant to me.
Sure.
So this would be like, because this is, we would consider this a true partnership event with declining support. So this would be similar to what we did with JAM, for example.
Okay.
When JAM started, now we've now got to the point where I think 2018 or this year was the last year for support for them. So this would be under declining support. We want to make sure that when a new group is coming through, especially a volunteer-driven group, and they want to do a new event, you have to assist in order to build and grow that committee. We would be directly involved. So a lot of the things, for example, with Impact Ajax, we're not directly involved in that. They're purchase of service agreements that we do for either a new program.
That was my next question. Would this be something more appropriate for Impact Ajax?
Yes, I mean, depending on the results for today, like, I mean, they could put that in, but it's not sustainable, right? So that, like, when you're looking at a program that you want to be sustainable, you want to make sure that you're providing that seed grant money, getting them to a certain part, and then declining that support, which is what we've done with a number of our true partnerships that we've had. Again, you're looking at the Black History Month events that we've done, some of our cultural events that we've done. We've provided that seed dollar in order to get them to where they need to be, and then we decline after that.
Okay, and I'm familiar with Pickering Village Jam, and I mean,
yes,
providing a lot of in-kind stuff, picnic tables, a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that was a $7,000
The Schimmeldeal.
Yeah, exactly.
Still that kind of stuff. So, okay, I just want clarification on that. Thank you. I'll move it.
Thank you. Mayor Parrish?
When is this going to happen in June?
Usually it's traditionally in Oshawa, when they were holding it, it was always the first weekend in June. However, we did have discussions with them. If they're going to move to Ajax, the first weekend in June is typically Rotary Ribfest, yes, and sometimes that would cause a bit of a conflict because a lot of people will go to Pickering for that event. It's a very popular event. You get tens of thousands of people there. So we were looking at either the first or second weekend, but we do understand that there are other things happening in June, especially in 2018. The Great Lakes Conference, I think, is the 15th, 16th, 17th. So we are working with them to decide on when the best.
Yeah, that was my only concern, that there's a lot going on.
And it is a Sunday as well, which is also not...
It is on Sunday?
Yeah, it's usually the parade is usually held on a Sunday morning. And so it potentially could happen on the same weekend as Ribfest. Again, Sunday is not as popular of a day. Usually Friday night and full day Saturday are the more popular ones. So we could sort of look at how to mitigate that as well.
Okay, that was my only concern, that there might be events that it blends well with, and there might be, and I know some of the same staff are in rec and culture would be the support people that would be supporting a number of events, and that there would be a resources issue. So that was my only concern. But I certainly support the direction and the move, and I never knew why they did in Oshawa anyway.
Regional Councillor Jordan.
Just want to ask, where in Ajax are you thinking of?
We've already provided them with the same route as the Santa Claus Parade. So we'd probably start at Mackenzie, go down Bailey to Harwood, up Harwood and the Town Hall. Their route in Oshawa is very short. It's shorter than what we would have here. So this would actually be a bit of an extension. But we already work with DRPS in terms of what that route looks like and how that route operates. It's an established route that we do with Durham Region as well, because as you know, Durham Region would give those road permits as well for that. So I don't think it would be an issue for them. And again, it's a Sunday morning. They want to make sure that if this was during the week at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm pretty sure there would be some issues from the region. But a Sunday morning, I think, is okay.
Also, the 17th is Father's Day, so that Rotary Park would have their pancake breakfast.
Yeah, it would be before that. They usually like to keep it at the beginning of June. Or even
well, see, and the 9th is the 10th is Great Lakes, and the 3rd is FCN.
Very good. Summer.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody's moved it. All in favor? All righty, that's the end of our consent agenda. So 5.1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few short background comment before any questions. So, I do want to make it clear the positions that are in the report are not all the positions that were identified by the department. So, as it is every year, the list is much bigger, but the management committee was well aware we're in a 1.75% base increase for 2018. So, the numbers in this report, the staffing were reduced in line with that, a little bit less than last year's. And having said that, as the Director of Finance's report says, we've got $510,000 to find to get to 1.75, and everything is fair game during those discussions, and the ability to fund these positions, any or all of these positions are always a part of that discussion. And just the final piece as well too, although we do have a fire inspector position in there, Chief Lang and his staff are commenced work on updating the fire master plan so that the new council will have the privilege of seeing a long overdue report on fire service levels in the town of Page Mountains. But we certainly need to identify that the need for inspection as a proactive approach to fire was important as well too. So that's it, Madam Chair, for my comments.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Jordan.
Thank you. I just, the business system analyst, I wasn't sure exactly what would be the goals of that person.
Yeah, that's, I'll let Mr. Meredith, but that is a position in operations dedicated to our maintenance management system, but Mr. Meredith is best equipped. And that was done in consultation with LAS as well too. There's some overlap there, but I'll let
Okay.
Mr. Meredith.
It was like the city works. And
Yes,
all that.
I'll let him explain that much better than me.
So CityWorks is an application that's being rolled out within operations and environmental services that tracks all of the labor and equipment by asset type. So there's a direct connection to our GIS system. So it really becomes a business tool sort of as we move forward in terms of understanding the cost as it relates to maintaining individual assets. So right now it is very much based on the budget in terms of labor and equipment getting tracked to, say, for example, parks maintenance. This goes to a much greater level of detail where it gets to individual parks, individual playgrounds, every specific asset, and it allows us to verify and validate and adjust service levels. It allows us to understand the full cost to maintain every asset that we do have within the organization. So it's really evolved through sort of the process over the last year, consultation between LIS and IT, as well as operations and environmental services. The fact that there is sort of that expert that understands the maintenance management aspect of the organization, provides the reporting details and works directly with the department. That is really a business tool that allows us as an organization to make better business decisions as we move forward as it relates to services we provide.
Well, I'm just hoping at the end of the day that a full-time position to do all that. Who's doing it now, or is it rather hit and miss?
Well, I'd say right now it's spread out amongst different individuals that are taking small pieces of it, and it's grown to the point where there is a full-time commitment that's required that's going into this. So it is bits and pieces of different individuals that are involved. There's our GIS specialists, there's systems analysts in IT, there's individual technicians and supervisors within operations all have a piece of it, and this is one individual that will take ownership, that will take the lead, and will be that point of contact for all those individuals that require the support for it. So it's going to continue to grow and expand within the organization, and in order for us to allow it to expand and take on the role it needs to provide corporately, there is a full-time dedicated resource required in order for us to really advance the CityWorks and the benefits that it will provide long-term.
And that will free up time in other positions? And do you have work to fill that time?
Oh, believe me, there's individuals that are dealing with this now that is beyond the capacity of what they currently have on their plate, so that's not a concern.
I thought that would be. Just checking. Thank you.
I don't have anything to report there.
I'll move it.
No, I think there's anything to move, is it?
Just receive for
Receive for, okay. All in favor? 5.2, delegation of powers and duties.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, I'll just say a couple words with respect to this report. This has been a subject that's been on the radar of Legislative Services staff for some time. We're happy to be able to kind of wrap this up within this term of council. The general thrust is administrative cleanup. There was an opportunity to be a bit clearer about how the organization manages different delegated powers from council, and the primary thrust of this project was to codify that, understand it, and make it in a format that's accessible to residents. And related to that was also the kind of the rationalization of how corporate policies are approved within the organization, determining whether or not that approval should rest with council within certain criteria or with staff. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none, somebody move it. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Thanks for doing such a good job, Alice. And the Great Lakes Conference update, 6.2?
No?
No. Oh, we missed 5.3.
5.3.
Oh, sorry, 5.3. Sorry about that, Andrew.
Are we having a presentation, or can we go right to
Thank you. Through the chair. Just a few comments prior to any of the questions.
Thank you.
Our beautiful waterfront in Ajax contains a pretty important component, which is the Ajax Waterfront Trail. The trail is a 3-meter wide asphalt multi-use recreational trail that spans about over 7 kilometers from Frisco Road to Ontario Boulevard. It is a very well used, probably the most used trail in town. It's a regional trail. It forms a component of the Trans-Canada Trail System, the waterfront trail system. It's also local, municipal usage. Because of all this usage, there is a considerable variety of users, such as high-speed users versus low-speed users. There's cyclists that are, in some cases, going quite quickly. There's people that are walking, pushing strollers. So there's a variety of different people using this trail. And because of that, there are conflicts. And there's been conflicts now for some time. And staff and council receive comments back from the public and from the users about these conflicts on a regular basis. When we have our annual waterfront open house meeting, we receive many comments back about, can we do something about this? It's quite dangerous. So from the staff perspective, we look at public safety, we look at age-friendly and user-friendly for the trail system, and particularly the Ajax waterfront trail. So staff were directed to look at a strategy going forward to mitigate some of these conflicts through a strategy for trail twinning. And this concept comes out of many master plans, background studies, reports, information back from the public. The report that we have before us is a report that describes the phasing of such a strategy as well as location at a high level. So it's quite a conceptual layout, but staff did quite an extensive look at the trail from one end to the other, ground proofing to find out where there are areas where the trail could be twinned. And the plans that you have as part of the report show the phasing and the location of where that trail could go. So I'll open it up to any questions. And,
thank you. Mayor Parrish?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson. First of all, I basically agree with the phasing that you've set out, simply because Paradise is a project that hopefully one day will start. And of course, it's just a natural to expand that out to Pickering Beach and Rangelite, so that, you know, we fill up that Pickering Beach section. And I think obviously Rotary Park has to be up there as well, because it's the single heaviest use area of the waterfront along the Pickering Beach. So I basically agree with your priorities. On the Paradise Park part of it and the whole section from Pickering Beach Road to Shoal Point Road, are we doing the bike section as bike lanes on each side of the road, or are we doing it as one separate bike path? The reason I ask that is that along a lot of the waterfront we had, or before erosion played its role, we had about 400 feet. But Pickering Beach is really the area south of the road is really narrower than that. And, you know, taking a lot of that green space away for two separate paths is not something that we should do unless we have to do it. And it seems to me that we can accommodate the cycling part of it on the road, either by a cycling lane on each side of the road in the direction of travel, or one 3-meter wide lane on the south side of the road that's two directional. Can you explain what the vision for that is?
It's very difficult to have one lane, two directional on one side of the road. It's very dangerous. I'm not sure through the highway traffic act we could even do that.
Oh yeah, it's done.
I mean, if we can do it off-road, it would be more desirable. One of the difficulties we have is at some point that bicycle traffic has to cross the road. And that's those points where that they cross the road, whether at Pickering Beach to get back onto the waterfront trail, or at the other end to cross back over to get back on the trail, those are very dangerous.
Well, let me take your point. I'm proceeding on a bike eastbound on the waterfront trail. I'm approaching the slope down to the foot of Pickering Beach Road. Okay? I can very easily go on a bike lane on Pickering Beach Road, which is right there, at a point where the waterfront is extremely narrow. And I can go right across Pickering Beach Road in a bike lane, and then there's an entry into the trail that goes right off the south end of Shoal Point Road. And coming back the other way, again, it's pretty easy peasy. And yet, if I'm making 2 3-meter paths through that section, 20 meters of pavement, on an area that we're trying to accommodate areas for picnicking, for users of the beach, we're going to put a change room down there, et cetera, et cetera.
We're not.
What?
No, we're not.
Washroom, I'm sorry. But it seems to me that, and I get your conceptual of the parallel trails and other sections, I have no problem with that at all. But it seemed to me that through the Pickering Beach area, because of the constraints and all the other things we're doing there, it might be another way of looking at it. I'm just raising it because of the scarcity of the land.
Well, we'd have to look at the road widths and see if bicycle lane could be accommodated. There is the going westbound on the north side of the road,
right,
where we're proposing that the new twin trail would be where the old road alignment was.
Okay.
You'd still have to cross the road going westbound to get on that trail. So then you're crossing the road to do that.
Okay.
So we'd have to look at the safety of that and how we would go about designing that and see if we can accommodate it.
So we have an approved design subject to an EA for the road. How does what we have in the pipe right now for a project that's going to start, I hope, in the not too distant future, how is phase 1 set out in that project that we could see on the ground by this time next year?
In terms of the trail associated with
in terms of what, when the Paradise Beach project is complete, I take it twinning will happen through that project?
Yeah, it's phase 1.
So what will we see?
So what we'll see is where the old road alignment is now. It's the road now. A section of that will become the new twinned trail.
The new wheeled bicycle,
so we'll
etc.
split
trail.
at either end with signage, line painting, One user will go slightly to the north where the old road alignment
Okay.
is, and then the...
And then pedestrian will stay on the existing one?
Yes, so that existing trail will stay as is.
Okay, okay. The boardwalk at Rotary Park, I see is extremely important. I think that, you know, the dynamic beach, the water levels, the washout, et cetera, I think that, you know, it's only going to happen again, and so I think that is the right way to do that. But between the first 3 phases, you're looking at 1.7 million dollars. This is going to take a while to do these things, but those first 3, what I see is fairly important projects. What do you project is the phasing of that over time? Is that going to be happening in the 5-year cap that we're going to deal with shortly, or are we looking at more like 10 years? Or
so the report makes reference to approximately 7 phases. So the first few phases, we would be looking at the first phase at Paradise. So as that gets constructed out, that would be the first phase. And then we would, in the meantime, we would be looking at hiring a consultant, a team of consultants really, to look at bridge boardwalk structure at Rotary Park, from the eastern terminus of the existing bridge over to the park.
Right.
Now to take it away from that dynamic beach. So that would be sort of the second kind of phase that we would be looking at hiring for next year. Then we would turn our sights to completing those sections of trail at Paradise, Pickering Beach, Shoal Point, because we've got that one section in there at that time completed. And then we'd go back and finish the boardwalk and those further connections along the waterfront moving east, where we made those repairs this year.
Just one other question. Because this is taking place over time, and is going to be done so that we'll have a twin section and then we won't have a twin section for a period of time. Will during these interim periods where we don't have a fully twin system for the next decade, let's say, have, you know, they'll be safely merging and going apart and merging again, I take it?
We'll have to handle that through signage and line painting, but there will be sections of this trail that will be combined, even in the long term.
Yeah.
There's areas that we just simply cannot twin the trail unless we're willing to put more infrastructure money, whatever, into more bridges and, you know, that kind of thing. Right now, there's some pinch points where we're going to combine the trail, and partly it's real estate as well. There are some areas where there's just not enough room.
In places where there really aren't enough room, is part of the plan to twin it but have them adjacent to one another? I've been on lakefront boardwalks that have cycling and pedestrian facilities where they're side by side and they're contiguous, but there is lineage that has the outline of a pedestrian and the outline of a cyclist, et cetera, and they're separated in that way. But they're put all together in one trail that in this case might be, instead of a 3-meter cross section, might be a 5 or 6 meter section.
We'll definitely look at that to see if that's possible, because we would have to have sort of a central line and then for one direction and then another line to separate those uses. So, excuse me, we'd have to look at the real estate in those pinch points and whether we can expand the trail enough to accommodate that, those various uses.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dice? So just so I get this straight, you're going to twin the trail 2 separate pieces. 3, and is the existing trail also 3 meters? So you've now got 6 meters of trail. What's the distance in between the 2?
It would vary. There are some areas where it would be relatively close, and there's other areas where we will be pulling it away, for example, away from some vegetation, around vegetation, because we don't want to be eliminating trees. We want to make it as...
that was my next question.
Yes.
Are we eliminating trees?
No.
Wherever
we can,
that
there'll be...
was the criteria you were
yes.
looking at.
Yes, very little disruption to the existing topography, vegetation. We want view corridors. You know, we want to try to keep them relatively close together when and where we can.
So I see the signage as an issue again, because
we know that didn't go well when we were looking at wayfinding and having a lot of signage on the waterfront because people don't, what they would like to say is naturally as possible. And there's ways of doing that. So I don't know how you do it. I hope it's included in the style of wayfinding you have. I think a lot of people don't want to see any more signage along the trail. We can figure it out when emergency where it goes. So is there going to be any issues with runoff with having this kind of trail paved on the waterfront?
There will be a little bit more runoff. It'll run off to swales and hopefully with very, very slight gradients, it'll still be able to percolate into the ground.
So you're not seeing that there will be any real significant issues?
I don't see significant issues, no.
So how much waterfront did we lose just around the Love Crescent area? Because that's where we actually lost the trail.
We lost about 2.53 meters of waterfront in places. There were two significant washouts that undermined the trails, one over at McLaurin, one at Love, and then there was another area that came very, very close to undermining the trail to the point where it couldn't be used.
Yes. And that's, I guess, part of my concern about investing into twinning the trail when we had such significant erosion in certain parts. And I guess that varies on the wind as well. But when I look particularly where Love is, really not that far. It's one, I don't call it a pinch point, but it's a narrower part of the waterfront where the houses are pretty close. If this is going to be a product of change moving forward, the severe storms and wind, that's my concern about the erosion. What are we doing to mitigate that problem if we're going to invest this money on twinning it?
Well, I think long term we have to work with TRC, Toronto Region Conservation Authority, and see if there are any ways of dealing with that erosion, future erosion, possible future erosion. We're just not sure what those impacts will be in the future. We know that there probably will be some more impacts. We tried to push the trail back further to the north, away from those dangerous areas.
But do we have a commitment from TRC to do that?
I believe we're working on that.
And how long will that take?
I don't know. I have to get back to you.
Because again, I'm a little bit hesitant about the amount of paving that will be done, the investment that's being made, the maintenance that will go into that. And I think we have to be realistic about the number of people who are complaining. Yes, I know there's an increase in usership, but it tends to be from a small number of people with a very strong voice. A lot of cyclists don't use it in those heavy periods when it's very busy because it's too busy. So I don't know, I would like, I guess, some assurance that, with TRCA, we are definitely going to do something to protect that if we're going to invest this type of money in ongoing maintenance on it. So I'd kind of like to know when that's coming. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Crawford.
Really quick, on the Rotary Park adjustment there, I agree we have to do something because where it is currently going down is not good at all. But you're suggesting going past the park, right? So the trail is not going down that big hill, it's going around, and the park is right there where kids are playing. And you're going to put, I avoid, I'll be perfectly honest with you, riding my bike down there because it's so frustrating. But that to me seems like a very dangerous situation. I mean, I've been there with my kid, with my granddaughter. They don't pay attention to high-speed anything, walkers, dogs, anything, bikes going on that trail. And I know it's only a short kind of stunt, but are you going to do some sort of fencing, not to fence people into the park, but something that would slow kids down to coming onto the path when you've got, because it's kind of lined coming around there, if I remember it correctly. I just think that it could potentially cause more problems at that point where the park is. And I don't understand, are you suggesting it comes, that would meet up with the boardwalk? That you would connect it somehow?
Yeah, so
To the bridge?
I'm looking at
You don't
sheet
realize it
3,
happens.
which is Appendix C. So we're looking
Yeah.
at extending a boardwalk bridge structure through the north.
Oh, gotcha. So up and over.
Yep.
Okay,
So
got
that
it,
it would be
okay.
further to north away from the dynamic beach. It would come across that slope and up. That is an extremely active area, the
Very,
Rotary Park.
yeah.
It's a regional park. People
Yeah.
come from all over to
Yeah.
use this. So the options are to go around, which is, again, very difficult because now you're up against parking lots, splash pad.
No, I totally get it.
So
Yeah.
we're looking at extending the trail back down to the south side of the Rotary Pavilion, trying to keep it away from the playground, so that we try to at least acknowledge that it's a very busy location. So if it means putting some decorative fencing up or some kind of a buffer, we would definitely look at that because safety is extremely important.
Yeah, so thank goodness I'm not the counselor for that, but all it takes is somebody getting somewhat sideswiped from a bike, because kids don't pay attention. I'm sorry, they just don't. They get playing tag and whatever, and they're just running. So
And the
I
trail
just see that as,
the trail does go through there now. It's just a little further to the
yeah,
south.
but if you
So
have options,
we're bringing it around and back down.
yeah, the trail, but the bikers don't take that option. Because, well, at least I would never take that option. I would go down and brave the sand trap going into the bridge. But I just think that something should be done there just to slow people down, to be aware that is there. And if you're giving them an option to go up over onto the bridge, you're also going to get more pedestrians taking that option too. So you're still going to run in with pedestrians running into cyclists doing that.
So to clarify, the proposal that we have here
Is it
on
only
sheet
for bikes?
3 the proposal is to actually eliminate that sand walkway.
Yeah.
Right, so there's no longer an option to go along that beach. There'll still be access to
No,
the beach.
but what I'm saying is I would rather brave the sand than
Oh.
try to get around that park. I know there's 2 trails, but that park is just crazy. Like, I'm just stating. I mean, you can do what you want, but I think that the kids there, it's like you said, it draws a lot of kids and a lot of parents, and they just really don't pay attention. That's just what kids do. They don't pay attention.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Jordan?
It's just,
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. I know, but your name's written
You
down.
nodded at me 3 times.
Oh. That's me. You're making eyes at me.
Is it me or?
You.
Okay.
Chair.
I just, I agree with all of this, and of course it will go out as it's further refined in a lot of communities. I'm just curious about Rotary Park and the proposed boardwalk. Is this a new trail or is it being twinned through here?
This would be a combined trail, similar to the existing boardwalk that's there now, which is combined. So we're not looking at twinning the trail like a twin boardwalk. It would be an extension, perhaps not the same design or structural size of the existing Duffins boardwalk, but it would be a connection that would go across that wetland up to the trail system that's there now. So it would be a combined section of trail.
So we're not twinning it? We're not doing, okay, I wanted to be clear about that because we always have concerns about people on the bridge and cyclists. We haven't looked at anything to address that issue. We're just moving it basically because of the erosion. We need to look at that maybe a little further. It's going to cost a heck of a pile of money, obviously.
Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You need to put your hand down.
Don't nod at me.
Jesus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, the resolution is item 3 that council authorized staff to incorporate the future phases into the long-range capital forecast. But you're talking already about hiring a team of consultants next year to start looking at the planning. So I guess my first question is, constraint is this already? Like, are we going to see this at the capital budget meeting? Is phase 1 already in?
Through the chair, the design piece
Yeah.
is proposed to be started in 2018.
Okay.
There is a capital detail sheet for it.
Okay, so the first 144,800 is already in there.
That is the Paradise, and that is part of the capital project.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, so Ms. Bain is correct. There is phase one, which is within Paradise Park, and is already captured within the existing capital project. It's already been funded through the capital project for the Paradise Park improvements. The second element, there will be a capital detail sheet for, I think it's $150,000 to do the detail design for the boardwalk. And that is...
For item 3.
Correct.
Okay. I kind of take exception having a report asking us to approve something that's already well in the works, is what I'm getting here.
I think all that's in the works at this point in time is a phasing strategy that council generally endorses. We're not committing to any years. We're not committing to sort of the timing for completion. Obviously, we balance a large capital portfolio decisions on an annual basis. And what we are looking for is council to generally endorse this sequence of phasing at these estimated costs. As we move forward, we're moving forward in a sequential basis, and when we've got the ability to fund a particular phase, that we will introduce that through the capital budget process. Like I said, the only thing right now is Paradise, which has been funded, and the boardwalk, which is really to get it, because that 1.2 is a very general number without a detailed design, that we do need to refine and complete that design next year.
Okay, well, here's my thing, and I'll see if I can come up with another question to wrap it up. But these are, and I fully support Waterfront Trail. I use it not as much as I used to, but I use it fairly often. But it's a nice to have, not a need to have. And I'm all for development through development charges and gas tax by all means, but we already have a pretty tight capital projects reserve, or capital project list, a finite amount in the capital projects reserve, and we're talking about some of these like they're already done deals. I don't want to see any current capital projects be bumped out to fit these in. I absolutely agree with doing these at the time other development's being done. That only makes sense. And if that's the case, fine. But to accelerate any of these over another project that's already in the long range, and is the long range capital forecast that 1 to 5 or 5 to 10 years?
1 to 5.
1 to 5. So I would say, items 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 should probably be in 6 to 10, to be quite honest, so we don't bump something out. I would need to see something really justified, like the bank washing out. And that brings me to another thing. Since we already replaced some of our trails, I'm wondering why these weren't already done in those areas, considering we're already doing the expense. I absolutely agree if it's in conjunction with another project, but just strongly feel that this shouldn't bump anything. We also had a report earlier talking about 4 projects we've applied for through provincial funding that if we get may put pressure on the capital projects in the long range going forward. So, any comments on that? Meredith, or
just your comments.
I'm just, I don't know if that's shared, probably not shared by some of my colleagues, but I mean, the Ajax Big Plays capital project reserve is sort of limited, and we talk about not having enough to do the roads and bridges and a lot of our infrastructure. I don't want to see anything about it.
Yeah, and I think what we would look to do is generally we try and align the capital program. We look at it from an asset management perspective, and we also look at it from sort of council's priorities in the corporate action plan in terms of new projects and initiatives. We do, and we have recognized that with a new council coming in 2019 in terms of potentially resetting priorities and what those priorities may be, there may be direction that gets provided to staff that we will look to respond to the priorities that council would set out in 2019 in terms of what those priorities may be. But like our process is, annually, council receives the projects that staff recommend from a priority standpoint that should generally align with the corporate action plan and our asset management plan, and the recommendations that staff bring forward to council for their support. So when we get to the point where we feel that a certain phase of the waterfront plan is a priority and aligns with corporate priorities, then we look to introduce those, and council will have the ability to support and provide different direction at that time.
Okay. So just to be clear, the only ones that are actually in the capital project, the long-range capital forecast now, Mr. Ainer, items 1 and design for 3.
Yes, it'll be in the current. The design, the number 1 is already approved
Yep.
and underway.
Yep.
The number 3 is part of the capital forecast that you'll see coming in December.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
What about item 2? Where's that going to be?
In the long-range capital forecast.
Which year?
Oh.
Number 2 is not in the current forecast right now. Obviously, we're just doing the phase 1 next year. Is sort of the first phase that we will assess, and phase 2 will be added at the appropriate time.
So
it's really
phase
phase
1
3 and the other one's phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So phase 1 and 3 are in the forecast
The
for
design for
designs
3.
Design for
for
3.
3, okay. And 2, and the rest of them will be whenever. Thank you. Councillor Dyes, sorry, you're next.
Sorry. So Dave, given the timelines you were talking about, we could still, not knowing when the big spaces are going to roll out, we can still then get back to TRC and get some sort of commitment on those areas that have damage done.
Yeah, I think as part of this, and we've heard from council, even when we did the emergency repairs earlier this year, the need for a long-term strategy and erosion protection along Lake Ontario.
Well, that's why I'm surprised to see it so quick,
And
because of what happened this summer.
So I think the commitment that staff are making is arranging and having those meetings this winter with TRC, looking at what some of the long-term opportunities may be and what funding opportunities that TRC may have access to, because a lot of the improvements that we're talking about, long-term shoreline protection, are going to need significant investments from other levels of government to implement. These aren't necessarily initiatives that would be affordable by the town of Ajax. So we need other funding partners to be part of those long-term solutions.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jordan.
I'll move it, but I want to call for recess after that.
Okay, it's been moved. Any more questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, and there's a call for a 10-minute break. Does that work for everybody?
I have 17% left of my battery.
You want my charger?
Plug in here if you need to.
I have the cord, I just don't have the guy.
I'll go get it.
What's that?
My battery is done.
Although it only just reaches here, it probably won't reach you there.
Yeah.
Do you have,
I have a long cord.
do you have a loaner one, or should I go to my
I
car
have
and
a
get one?
really long cord, I just need
Okay, you just need the plug?
My battery is really bad.
Where's that?
Everything is turned off too. Yes. And does that thing even work? It seems really slow, that
No, I don't think the plug is any quicker or slower than any other one.
I got a big cord. Does it plug?
There's no USB, but there is a power.
Oh, okay, so he's gonna bring the,
Yeah, you need a power. Unless you daisy chain, maybe you can plug it in.
See, I was good. I kept all of my comments provisionally.
Yeah, that did go through. And you know what? It's usually a fair target.
Yeah, especially with the here.
Well, I don't know. That's okay. So I don't know if you're
Yeah, you're
that's the number.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a name anymore. This is weird. I
So are you gonna head out? Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of shooting through it, right? It's one of those big ones.
So she's asking the same
Yeah. Well, actually, signage was done.
Okay, that's why it was on. Okay. Yeah, they're bringing them down.
Yeah, well, I know.
Yeah, well, I know.
I know. It's 100% for November. One of those days. It is one of those days. Oh, honestly,
But that's their time. Well, that's their interest.
Not that hill, that's.
You just got this chunky thing there. That was it. And I kind of figured just let it run.
I agree completely. We get it at the same time. Of course. The fire systems are working, you know. Yeah. So anyway, that's all.
But you're the chief professional.
What does that say?
I did actually have to stand up. Like this, and I said, this is our presentation, and we go right to questions.
Oh my God, that's like.
That was before I sat down. When I sat down, I was like.
I thought you were wanting to.
Yeah,
Well, that
true.
too. There's no really need it. It's all like Does this record?
Sorry, I felt like we flew off the ground leading into it.
It's like usually.
Well, that's because Alec already took it.
Alec?
Oh, I'm sorry. He took it full.
Yeah. It's like.
Well, I've got you, so
You're
there isn't even room.
You know what? I'll put it over here. And I'll just drop my phone.
Don't even worry about my
So you take
Really small
This,
place.
I don't know if there's something
Are you plugged in?
no. You know what? I've got enough. I should be able to.
That's stupid, putting two side by side. That's poor planning.
It should be able to.
Yeah, it does.
Dave. Let's blame Dave. They're huge.
Well, they gotta make them.
Coming into group, I got
Oh, yeah, you're right. That totally is.
Yeah, it's the worst thing.
Oh, no, the budget builder.
Doing good. We're like 300 pages through. Oh, believe me.
So we have from the Great Lakes Conference update. I don't know, I'm not going to be here.
For the conference or just for the
conference? I know Zona's probably heard the presentation also, but I won't be here for the conference. No, I'll be married. I'll be on my nose.
How long is your honeymoon?
Yeah.
But it was that just the second time, and maybe the guy just
Never enough time.
Awesome.
They don't like to eat. They like the
It's not, because every morning you wake up and at 7 o'clock you get off the ship and go in the ship's late.
Did you read the
Can I call it all back to order again, or
I think we're still missing a couple bodies.
the mayor is the
Well,
only
no,
body
the
I
important ones here.
Yeah, you're right. You tell me how important that is.
Oh, dear. Anyway, Great Lakes update, please.
Okay, thank you, and through the chair, myself and Rachel Matheson are co-chairs of the 2018 Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative annual meeting and conference. So the two of us are leading up a corporate committee to organize and bring the Great Lakes conference to Ajax next June. So in June of this year, we attended the Montreal conference, which became hosted in Montreal. And we officially announced that the town would be hosting the event next year. So we announced this with a special invitation video, which we're going to play for you now.
Welcome to Ajax, Ontario, your host for the 2018 Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative Conference. Nestled along the edge of Lake Ontario, the town was once home to the largest munitions plant in the British Commonwealth during World War II and is named after the ship HMS Ajax. Today, we are a progressive, diverse, and proud Great Lakes community, guided by an environment-first philosophy and a passion for water advocacy. A town of abundant natural landscapes, including a 70-hectare publicly owned waterfront that connects to over 150 kilometers of multi-use trails and cycling facilities. We invite you to take in the charm of historic Pickering Village and experience our emerging downtown. Anywhere you travel in Ajax, you will experience our rich heritage and history. From restaurants and relaxation to entertainment and exploration, Ajax promises a unique conference experience. Chart your course to Ajax, June 13th to 15th, 2018.
So just to give you a little bit of a background refresher, we will be hosting the conference from June 13th to 15th of this coming year. The Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative has a membership of approximately 130 mayors, and so with the mayors and water quality experts, researchers, and NGOs are expecting to host approximately 150 attendees and delegates, as well as their companions, with the goal of mobilizing on issues that are affecting water quality, health, and vitality of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence rivers, focused on issues of shared interest in both water protection and advocacy. And so we are pleased to announce at this time that the theme for 2018 is Charting a Course to Resilience. The theme has been developed in partnership with the city's initiative, and we believe that it encompasses all of the timely, relevant discussions that will take place during this conference, focused on best practices, solutions, and collaborative approaches. So the conference officially kicks off on June 13th, and this is a members-only day. So this is where we get through a lot of the formal portion of the conference. It's going to be hosted at the Ajax Convention Center, and then delegates will be staying at the neighboring hotels, Homewood Suites, as well as the Hilton Garden Inn. So the annual general meeting will take place here, as well as regional meetings, and there'll be a trade show as well, just to display local sponsors and businesses that'll be involved with the conference. The board meeting will also take place for the city's initiative, and during that time we'll be providing optional tours and excursions for members and their delegates to take in Ajax. The evening program will be at the St. Francis Center, so this is where we'll be hosting an exclusive members-only welcome reception and dinner. So this is an opportunity for an official welcome from council, as well as entertainment and networking in historic Pickering Village. I should also mention that we will also be hosting a hospitality suite at the Hilton Garden Inn. And this is just an opportunity for delegates to sort of network and be in a sort of informal and casual setting. As we move into day 2 on June 14th, this is really the public program. So it's not only open to members, but also to the general public. So this will be hosted at the Ajax Convention Center. And we're pleased to share that our keynote speaker for that day is going to be author Dan Egan, who is a journalist and very well respected within the water advocacy community. In addition, we will be hosting expert panels and would like to feature Dr. Marty Auer and our waterfront work that we've been doing with the algae issue. In addition, we will be hosting a news conference down at the Ajax waterfront. Traditionally, this is an opportunity to announce resolutions that were passed at the AGM, but we'll be looking to make another announcement and elevate this conference as well. So we're working on that as we get closer to the conference. Tours will be part of the day as well. So we will be having an Ajax waterfront tour to really showcase our waterfront and tell the Ajax waterfront story. In addition to its history, also the water quality work that we've been doing and the significant investment we've made in terms of addressing the algae issue. That afternoon, we will also be hosting tours. We'll be partnering with the region of Durham to take delegates to the Duffins Creek Water Pollution Control Plant.
Which water pollution plant?
The Duffins Creek Water Pollution Control Plant. So moving into the evening portion of the program on day 2, it's typically more of a gala-style event that all members and paid attendees come to. And we've decided to put a bit of an Ajax spin on it. Our vision is a waterfront under the stars event with the see-through tents, stargazing, entertainment featuring local food and beverages. We're hoping to partner with the Durham College Center for Food to cater that, as well as we're looking to have a short fireworks display sponsored as well. Moving into day 3, that's a wrap up for our conference. We will be starting the day at the Ajax Convention Center, and we are pleased to announce that our closing keynote speaker will be Dr. Diane Sachs, who is the Environmental Commissioner of Ontario, to wrap up with a strong call to action and leave everyone on a good note. After finishing with the that kind of formal presentation, the 2019 hosts will be able to announce their location.
before we move up to Greenwood Conservation Area. And we're hoping to partner with the OFAH on a salmon release for citizen science demonstration at that time, prior to lunch and a formal wrap-up.
So in addition to the conference, we will be enhancing it with companion tours. So many of the delegates will be bringing companions with them, and we see this as an opportunity to showcase not only Ajax, but Durham Region. So we are partnering with Durham Tourism, and we'll be showcasing a variety of different sites within Durham Region. So it includes slots at Ajax Downs, waterfront, our local restaurants, wineries, breweries, historical sites like Parkwood. So we'll be really looking at not only highlighting all of the great attractions we have here, but also across the region. So conference engagement is very important for us, and that we really, again, bring that Ajax flavor to the conference. So it's very important that we are taking every opportunity to highlight Ajax's unique history, as well as our celebrated culture. So we'll be providing self-guided and guided options to take in our integrated transportation system. In addition, it's very important that we do involve the community and engage with the community on this initiative to let them know that we are hosting this and why this is so important for Ajax. Beginning in early 2018, we are going to begin production on a special community video where we'll be involving the entire community in putting this together. And we anticipate bringing that to council sometime in April to officially launch it and really kick off the excitement and build momentum locally for hosting this conference. We also plan on doing an unprecedented amount of social media coverage for this conference. This will be a new undertaking for the city's initiative. So we'll be doing everything from live streaming to live social media coverage to really enhance the reach of this conference and build profile for not only Ajax but the city's initiative. Another unique initiative that we'll be implementing is a special contest. So we're going to have a limited amount of tickets for this conference. And so we want to hold a region-wide contest that we target colleges, universities, so Trent, Durham College, UIT, and really those water quality and environmental science programs, and provide them with the opportunity to submit a short essay about why they'd like to attend. So we're really providing an opportunity to have local people attend this conference and be involved.
So in terms of the collaborative cross-departmental steering committee that we have set up, as Rachel mentioned, Rachel and myself are co-chairing, along with, we have a few of our members here from the Office of the CAO, Emily Meek and Maria Wiggers are here. From Planning and Development, we have Nadia Sukowski and Steph Andis are here as well. From Recreation, Culture and Community Development, Robert Gruber is our representative, and from Operations, Jade Schofield is here as well. We are working very closely with the city's initiative staff members of the team and are looking forward to the continued collaboration on this event. So we are looking to partner with a number of different local stakeholders, and just a few examples are listed on your screen here.
So sponsorship. So earlier in the fall, we released our sponsorship package. So there's a variety of opportunities for businesses to get involved with the conference that range from $500 to $25,000. So we've been reaching out to our local businesses through a variety of avenues, including through Board of Trade and through our contacts, and leveraging contacts through the city's initiative to really spread the word about the conference and provide local businesses and groups to get involved with it. We're pleased to share that Ontario Power Generation has come on as our first sponsor, and we'll be working with them on their tailored sponsorship package. So moving forward, this is one of our priorities, is to secure further sponsorship for the conference, and it's something that will be happening on an ongoing basis leading up to the conference. So our next steps. So registration will officially open in January 2018. Now the full itinerary may not be completely ready by then, but this is an opportunity for members and delegates to have this in their calendars and to secure their spot as well as their accommodations. So you'll be seeing that in January 2018. As I mentioned, confirming additional speakers and sponsors is our top priority. So we're going to be continuing to reach out through our contacts, through our networks, and to find the best speakers that really speak to our theme of resilience. We expect to have a report before council in early 2018 with further details around the conference. And then, as I mentioned, we will be coming to council for a formal presentation in April of 2018. So we're here today to obviously present on work that's done to date, but to also seek some feedback from council as well. Because we still have more work to do here, but it's well at hand and we're well on our way. So we just wanted to open it up through the chair if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wondered with you doing the tour of the historical Pickering Village, will you be including the BIA on whatever plans you are doing for that?
Yeah, absolutely. We see this as a really great opportunity to showcase local businesses and obviously work with our local BIAs and boards of trade to just ensure that they're able to get some profile and partner with us on it. So definitely we will be reaching out to them.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the two Rachels. It sounds awesome. I'm sorry you're going to miss it. I'm not in town then.
You can watch it online.
I will watch it online. It's from somewhere in the middle of the ocean. I don't know. But this is coming directly on the heels of a provincial election. And one of the tours I saw in there is basically what I like to think of as the poster child for provincial policy on the Great Lakes. I mean, I know I expect we're going to be probably making a big deal about our waterfront and our algae issues and that leading into the election. Either way, I think this would be a good opportunity to raise awareness. What are we going to do to sort of tie those two things together? I know this can't be political, but what are we going to do to tie these together? They're not exactly the same time, but they can kind of be used.
Yes, so through the chair, when you look at the day 2 of our programming, the day is all about highlighting the Ajax waterfront. So this is really an educational opportunity and a profile opportunity to really bring our story to the forefront. And also through our conference that we'll be hosting, we're doing it at the Ajax waterfront, and we'll be doing a lot of work in advance of that to really bring attention and build profile to have media not only locally but from the GTA to come out and learn about this. This will be happening right after a provincial election, there is really that opportunity to showcase the work we've done to date and really show that story and the lobbying and advocacy that we have been doing. We have already put this out to our provincial officials to let them know that we are hosting this conference and that it's coming. We'll just have to see who our representative is going to be who will be speaking at it.
I think it's a good opportunity for leveraging sort of the conference is coming, this is the issue, even though it's not here yet.
Yeah, we recently changed, the Minister of the Environment recently changed, and we did send a letter to him to let him know of what council's priorities are and initiatives that are coming up for next year. Number one being that Great Lakes conference is happening, so it is on the radar. They know that it's happening, and at a staff level, they're also engaged.
Well, one of the candidates is announced, and I believe they signed the pledge with TACPAL last time. You might want to remind them of that obligation.
Absolutely, and that will be part of the advocacy strategy for the provincial election.
And I love the video. Were you limited at all in the time of the video, the length?
It's just supposed to be a splashy invitation video, so it's definitely just a sort of a commercial. And
I think it's great. I really liked it, but we all know where all those places are.
Yes.
If I could give one little bit of criticism, constructive hopefully, it's make the pictures just a little bit longer, because they flash so quickly, we know where they are.
Yeah.
But just so people outside of Ajax can look, oh wow, that's really impressive.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Dice.
Just thank you for the presentation and for all the work that you put into this already. It's a very exciting event, and we're very lucky to be able to host this as a binational organization. Part of that binational organization, so we will have many delegates from the U.S., from major cities, who most of them are experiencing algae issues. So you're right, we will have an opportunity before that, especially when the minister's order says it has to be a decision by the end, or not a decision, but their reports in the regions have to be in the end of March. So there are some opportunities here. And for us at the conference to talk about what we've done and the research that we've done on the waterfront, which is going to help many of these municipalities as they move forward. So we get to sort of toot our own horn about that because we've done some tremendous work. And we have a lot of new science and data that's going to help in the future. So congratulations, you're a great team and it's going really good.
And through the chair, if I could just make one comment to that. So we are hoping to have Dr. Auer at our conference, and it will be the first time that he'll be able to really speak publicly to all of his published papers that he's put together on the work he's done here in Ajax. So huge profile opportunity.
Thank you. Dan Egan, is he a Canadian or is he US? Or?
He's American.
He's American?
If you want to read his book, I've got him out.
And we will be getting copies for council.
Thank you very much. And are we arranging for bike rental for the waterfront?
Yes, we will be working with local partners. Northern Cycle is one of them, to have bikes available during the conference.
And OPG, what level did they sponsor?
So they're just coming in now to confirm, but it's one of the higher sponsorships. So we'll have that detail for council.
You don't want to tell us?
They're just confirming the exact number, so I don't want to speak too soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you. I'm assuming that it will be a green conference.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be working very closely with Jade, who is on our committee, to ensure that we're as green as possible and that we're following our own green events policy.
What about any canoes or kayaks available?
So we can definitely look into that. When we were going through the planning for the conference, it's really a day and a half of that public program. So it is really tight in sort of what our offerings can be. If there is an interest in that, that's something that we could look at. However, just the programming and the itinerary is very, very tight. So we just want to make sure that if we are having activities that we're able to provide the amount of time needed for them.
Well, I think previous conferences, they sometimes would offer different golfing or whatever if people came in earlier.
Yes.
Is that something we could look at as well?
Absolutely, like through our partners at Deer Creek or Crothers Creek or Riverside, there's opportunities to have some things available. And we'll have a better sense of when arrivals will be taking place after registration opens.
And is there any entertainment planned for St. Francis?
Yes. We'll be working with our partners in Recreation, Culture, and Community Development to find some really great entertainment for that evening.
It sounds really exciting. What about working with First Nations as far as opening?
Yes, so we recognize that importance of recognizing the traditional lands and everything that will be included throughout the conference, and they will be involved in the opening ceremonies.
Great, it sounds good.
And don't do what they did in Montreal and forget to invite the First Nation people.
We learned several lessons.
Yes, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well, too, that council may recall the original budget, because we didn't know what we were signing up for. It did include spending money on an external events planner, but staff have determined that with all the knowledge we have around the table that we won't require that. So, again, just another example of where staff in all departments can come together and pull something off without having the. So that's a credit to staff. This is not a small undertaking, but staff brought that to me to say we can do this on our own. So I think that's an important acknowledgement as well.
Councillor Crawford.
When did the bugs grace us down at the front?
Don't know.
They're all gone by June 10th.
They're all gone by June 10th? Perfect.
That's part of the local food.
Part of the protein intake.
I'll move receipt.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Waste management in outdoor public spaces, my favorite subject.
Mine too.
Not.
Feeling is mutual.
I guess.
We're Jake.
Thank you for having me. So I'm here to provide an update on waste management in outdoor public spaces. Just to start off with a bit of an overview, back in 2014, Waste Management of Canada conducted a study evaluating the key issues surrounding waste management within the town of Ajax, and this did include outdoor public spaces, particularly our park areas. And there were some recommended areas of action as they pertain to litter, use of waste receptacles for household waste, location of containers within the parks and trails system, pet waste, as well as graffiti or damage to the waste receptacle that we provide to our park and public space users. As a result of that study, we generated an anti-litter action plan which was adopted by Council in 2015. It's got 5 overall strategies. Strategy 1 is to improve waste infrastructure, also increase awareness around littering, encourage community pride and local involvement, as well as continue to enforce those that do not abide to bylaws through illegal dumping or the use of public receptacles for household waste, as well as increasing the cleanliness of our public spaces. So waste infrastructure within the parks and open space system is intended to provide conveniences to park and trail users, as well as permit holders, including picnic shelters, summer camps, as well and sports field programming. It is not intended for the use of household waste. In terms of the service we provide, we currently have 403 garbage cans that are located through the town between the months of May and October. And this drops down to 336 containers through November and April because obviously weather conditions and accessibility to these areas, as well as a drop in park usage. These 67 seasonal containers are added back again during summer season to support picnic areas, playgrounds, sports fields, as well as higher usage internal trail connections. Since the approval of the Anti-Litter Action Plan, 24 garbage cans have been removed from the systems. There are 2 main reasons as to why we've removed these containers. That is the oversupply of cans within specific areas, as well as consistent abuse with household waste and/or vandalism. We have also relocated 16 garbage containers, and this is to allow for improved servicing, as well as response to ability to service those cans or reduce illegal dumping. So we've relocated these areas so they can be easier accessed by the garbage truck itself, or be moved to an area that can service a broader area of either a playground or a park or a trail system. In terms of waste management and the services that the town provides, they do fall into 3 categories. There is roadside litter, there's parks litter, and then there's the garbage and recycling waste collection in our parks and trails system. The costs have been estimated on an annual basis to be around $300,000 for staff costs alone, and direct costs are around $125,000 to $150,000 per year, and these cover waste disposal, vehicle fuel, vehicle repairs, vehicle insurance, and supplies. In terms of the waste collection schedule, 51 containers are emptied by our staff on a daily basis, 93 containers 3 days a week, 199 containers twice a week, and 60 containers are emptied once a week. Over the past year, we have been able to tally up on customer service response and field observations. In terms of correspondence we've received regarding roads litter, that's 268. So this is litter that you'll find along major roadways. Easements, so these are the informal access, usually not paved areas. We've seen 8 complaints. And then parks, 127. In terms of requests for additional garbage cans, we've seen 65 correspondence from residents.
Madam Chair, I don't mean to interrupt, but we've all read this report.
Great.
And can we just go to questions? It's a motion to receive for information. There's a lot more on this agenda already.
Sure.
Is that all right with you, Jane? Is there anything important you need to add? Okay. Councillor.
Okay, well, with that,
Crawford.
thank you, Chair. I just have a quick question. I know you were.
No, Councillor Crawford is first.
Oh, sorry.
Your name, go ahead.
I thought you were pointing out.
No. Okay, so I understand all of the reasons why we removed garbage cans, mostly household waste. I would take it, and cost. I've been granted the luxury of time recently, and with that time I've done a lot of walking and a lot of running. And I know where every garbage pail is in Ward 1 on my walking route. So, and I've questioned this, so this is not going to come up as any surprise to anybody sitting around this table. 2 in particular garbage pails that have been there, one since I can't remember ever not being there, was taken out, I don't know what time this year. And now in its place are just bags of dog poo. So it's like, if we leave the dog poo here, the garbage can will come. So I don't really know what the logic is. 2 things that never occurred to me to do was to throw anything on the ground, let alone my dog poo. And I have a dog. Or taking my dog poo home and flushing it down the toilet. Sorry, it never occurred to me. It just never did. And apparently it didn't occur to the other people that just toss it on the ground. And astounding to me was that I actually watched somebody do that, and I questioned why they were doing it. So I don't think eliminating garbage cans is the solution, because it's not eliminating garbage. All it's doing is building up piles of dog poo where the garbage cans used to be, in at least 3 places where I walk. And my fear is that that will just expand to cans and other forms of garbage, and then we end up with a place that is not very clean. And you know what happens then in the winter? The snow comes and everything gets on top of it, all melts, and then you've got melted dog food bags and everything else. So I'm sorry, but I don't agree with taking the garbage cans away, because it's not solving a problem. I mean, it's clearly saved money, but it's made the area that I've been affected in look horrible, and I'm ashamed of how residents are just feeling at ease to throw things like that on the ground, expecting us to be picking it up. And so I don't think that's really what we want for Ajax, and I want my garbage cans back. So I don't know what we have to do that, but that's my opinion. And apparently it's a few people's opinion, because I keep getting emails about it, whether it's in my area or not. And I'm appalled that people just throw their stuff on the ground. I'm sorry.
Councillor Ashby, agreed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know you were away, Jade, but while you were away, we did get an email from our residents in regards to our overall waste management program. So I guess you would read that and you'll be responding to that.
I'm correct in thinking if it's the particular individual, this has already been addressed through different channels. It's just the same message that's been sent out.
Okay, maybe if we could get a copy of that so that I know that.
So it was addressed through the Environmental Advisory Committee.
So you know this individual?
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we always have this dog waste conversation, and I know that that's not our job, but I mean, it's here, it's not going anywhere, and we need to address it. Last thing, when we talk about what doesn't cross your mind, is I can't think of anything sillier than encapsulating this in plastic and putting it in landfill so it lasts forever. I mean, I brought up the concept of biodegradable bags and dispensers before, things that we see at these AMO and FCM shows all the time. I've also seen at the last one I went to, FCM in Ottawa, actually I have the information, it's on my desk, I can give it to you, Dave, or maybe I sent you already, right? Yep. Where are we looking at some of these new innovative sort of things where these are things that are, you only see a little bit above ground, and you can't vandalize the thing. I mean, why would you want to touch it? But it goes way down in the ground, and I mean, it only needs to be emptied once every couple of weeks. And you know, where are you looking at some of those things to address this issue we don't want to deal with, we have to deal with?
Through the chair, yeah, absolutely. This was something that I was addressing through this presentation. Is 25% of the waste in our pod system is attained to pet waste. We are in a very difficult situation here in Ajax, with the sense that we don't have close access to what's called an anaerobic digester. That is the preferred method of disposing. The other option is actually to flush it down the toilet and leave that to be dealt with at the sanitary sewer level, which we also know has a problem when it comes to nutrient loading and putting plastic bags down the waste, all sorts of things like that. I understand there has been a number of pilot projects that have been launched, particularly the region of Waterloo, using these below ground parks waste containers. They're piloting 3 parks. However, they are situated in an area where they have close access to an anaerobic digester and a service provider that can actually come in. It is a specialized truck.
Yeah.
It's a liquid pumping truck, and then they take it to the anaerobic digester and be disposed of. We are unfortunate in the sense that right now, household waste cannot accept pet waste. City of Toronto and Region of York can accept pet waste within the household waste system. We're not there yet. However, coming into effect in 2018 is the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Organic Action Plan, which we will actually see the ban of organic material, including pet waste, it is an organic material, going into a permanent disposal facility, that be landfill or incinerator. So we are waiting to see what the region does in terms of changing the system that they provide for residents to see where we can.
The region is going towards anaerobic digestion, whether they do it or whether it's contracted to Miller or whoever, remains to be seen. But as a municipality, I mean, people are still going to put it in plastic bags. I don't know why, but people aren't going to go buy biodegradable bags. They're going to use their no-frills bag or whatever. Well, okay, you're the exception because you're a lot more environmentally friendly than many. But I think as a municipality, to be responsible, I mean, it's a very simple thing to put out and a very inexpensive thing to have, you know, these bag dispensers that are biodegradable, make it available, increase awareness, even if it's only on a pilot project.
But this doesn't minimize the impact of where this waste is going.
Fair enough. But in the long term, I mean, rather than it being wrapped in plastic, which I think we all agree is not the way to go, nobody's going to take this home and flush
I'd
it.
actually have to say I disagree with the biodegradable bags. There's a lot of science right now surrounding microplastics, and a lot of these biodegradable bags actually just biodegrade to microplastics. They're made out of 100% natural material like cornstarch, which are fairly expensive to purchase. So there's a lot of science right now surrounding that. So biodegradable bags aren't necessarily a solution.
Okay, so what can we do to be proactive, knowing that next year somehow we're going to be going to anaerobic digestion?
So we are in a transition period. We understand that the most important thing that we can do is increase our education to our residents. We do encourage a pack-in, pack-out process, understanding that not everyone will participate in that program, but through it spreading the awareness and creating that social pressure, you know, social change takes some time to get people to take their waste home, because at the end of the day, is it fair that all taxpayers have to pay for the disposal of one individual's pet waste?
Nope. But
you know,
there's lots of examples of
There's
what's
lots of
not
examples.
fair that we all, like I could say I don't take the bus, but I pay for transit. I mean,
Is it fair
there's
to see
lots
it on
of
the ground? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know our litter budget, you said here was somewhere between 425 and 450. I'm not sure if that's for litter only or general garbage.
That includes a garbage truck.
Okay. So the litter alone, I was told, I think Dave, you told me it's in the 300,000 range, just for litter alone. So knowing that we have this cost and knowing that we're kind of, the province hasn't dropped the other shoe as far as the organics yet, but we know it's coming next year. I guess what I'd like to hear is that we're looking at a pilot project for something like this, or that these are in the works, not that we're in a holding pattern.
And until we have the disposal facilities available to us, we're not in a position to be able to even offer these pilot projects. It isn't financially feasible to contract a service similar to that of Waterloo and have our pet waste transported all the way to Waterloo for disposal.
Fair
The
enough.
cost limitations there. We're also in a very difficult position where we are a municipality that doesn't offer household waste service. So we fall in a gray area in terms of legislation. We're not technically residential household waste, even though typically our parks waste is that. We are classed as industrial, commercial, and institutional waste. So we do not have the same access to waste disposal sites as the region of Durham or other municipalities that manage household waste at that level. We're in a very difficult area in terms of waste disposal.
Since we're ICI and we contract our waste, are there any companies out there that do deal with this, just strictly organic?
There was previously an individual contractor that was offering the service in Pickering. He's retired, and then no one being available to replace that service. And you get into a very tricky situation when you want for a service and then have to take it away as well.
Okay, are we in a position where we can make a decision and movement quite quickly if this changes and if the anaerobic digestion becomes available, that we say, okay, we can have this implemented next year?
No, because the building of an anaerobic digester will take many years.
Councillor Dyes.
So given all of those challenges and really are at this point, it's education and promoting that people take responsibility for their waste, even if it's their dogs. So just so you know, I've had, and I think the residents have done a brilliant job and come out with their own PR system. So they're putting the dog waste where the can used to be, and I'm amazed it's only 24 cans that have been removed for the amount of calls. So they put it where the old can used to be, even though they're dog walkers and hikers that use the trail every day. They can't make it to where we've relocated it a few meters away. They put it where it used to be. And they have told people that that's okay if you just put the dog waste along the trail, the town will be picking it up.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why I kept seeing this until somebody told me that. So they're doing that, and they're using that to get those cans back. But, you know, we have a system that, or a way of it, it's called nudging, where you nudge people, and there's a whole bunch of reports in psychology around this, where how do we change people's habits? And we did that quite successfully with poop and scoop. Very successfully. So now people, when there's nobody watching, people still pick it up. So it's about how we get to that state, given the situation that we're in. But there are higher volume areas that you've identified, and you'll be putting appropriate, garbage cans there.
And I think we're at a point where there will be a combination of things. There still are a handful of areas where there are an oversupply of garbage cans. There are situations where there may be 4 within an existing parkette. But there are a couple of areas that we're responding to residents where there have been increasing requests for additional garbage cans that, at a staff level, we will be looking at introducing. So there still is a process over the course of this fall and winter that we will make some further revisions. And I don't think it needs to increase the volume of garbage cans. I think we may need to redistribute them to meet some of the requirements that we're hearing from the community.
Standardize the way that we deliver the service so that every pocket has the same amount of containers with the type of facilities it has. Right now, it varies across the town. So if you're used to a small pocket having 4 containers, because that was the way it was initially designed, we understand that there's going to be a feeling of, there may be some upset with when you're moving 4 down to 2 or 1. But at the same time, just because this one individual pocket has 4 containers, we're trying to standardize it so that every facility that we offer has the same amount of waste containers acceptable available as well.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Yes, I just wondered how effective is enforcement on the illegal dumping, because that's a real concern. I've seen people do it and I've enforced them, but how effective is it finding who that person is?
With Nicole not able to respond, I don't know in terms of convictions, but I do know that if there is a case of illegal dumping, bylaw is called and they do go through the guns to see if there's an identification possibility.
Can't tell whose dog poop it is, though.
Yeah.
DNA.
Household.
They're all in biodegradable bags, which is wonderful.
Pretty like a trail. Useful area.
Well, I think the household waste, because that's
Yes.
obviously filling cans.
I think we should have a blitz by bylaw for the notorious garbage can that gets filled with household waste. For our bylaw to go through that garbage, try and identify who's the culprit and charge them. That's the only way we're going to stop them. Through the pocketbook, that's all, but it's always effective.
I've asked for cameras in parks.
Sorry?
I've
Oh,
asked
that's
for
okay.
cameras in parks.
Yes. I've had so many complaints, and because I forward them all on, and people see it as a downgrade in their services, and they pay all these taxes, and they take the only garbage bin away where they put their pet waste. And people do not take it. I don't know anybody that takes it home and flushes it. You have to come to the understanding that all pet waste goes in the garbage right now.
And absolutely, and we do understand that that is the situation that we are in. We are in a very difficult situation because we are the ones managing these parks as Ajax. However, there is a disconnect between the services offered at the residential level and the public level. We are working, and we have contacted the region to see what changes we need at their end. But again, until these changes happen, we are in a different position. We know that that waste will be in the garbage stream of our trucks.
Well, thank you, Jane. It's not you personally that we're hitting on. I'm sorry.
Shooting the messenger.
Shooting the messenger, I know that, but it's so frustrating for us that get numerous calls and emails regarding the lack of garbage bins and emptying of them during the summer months. And I know you adjust your schedules to try to alleviate all this, but and you do a great job. I'm sorry that we've
I'll move the report.
Yeah, you've already moved the report.
I know he just did, yeah.
Yeah, you made the report.
Okay, good.
All those in favor? Remember when you stopped us?
Somebody moved it.
Yeah.
No, I just said, let's go on questions. I didn't.
Does that mean that we get our garbage pails back?
I'll move, we move in camera.
Okay, Joanne, you have to take over on item 2. I can move item 1, item 2. Thank you.